make sure it's working. Nice. All right, everybody. Let's friggin' dive into this thing. Yeah. What do we got going on? So we have 2 weeks of tournaments that we could talk about. Now, I think to abbreviate things, because we didn't talk about anything last week, which was the 18th. And yeah, so we had there's like 20 tournaments that we could talk about. I think that on the whole, there are probably some like faction archetypes that we might be able to just breeze over. You know what I'm saying? I think that in the last couple weeks, I think I've talked enough about Dark Angels that I don't really want to keep talking about them. Dark Angels lists look very similar, and when we hit them, it's probably going to be more of the same. There's like usually there's like a couple points of difference between different varieties of Dark Angel build, and that's about it. So I don't know if we need to dive too deeply into that stuff. So I may skip the Dark Angels. Astra Militarum is very similar as well. I mean, as you can see, Astra Militarum's had a good couple of weeks. We got a 5-1 here. We got a 6-0 and 2 5-1s from the Houston Open. Calm down over there. We got a double Adeptus Custodes over here and a Viking Invasion, which is cool. Another 5-0 from Astra Militarum. So I think Astra Militarum, statistically, not the best faction. They're right around the 50%er, but I think that in the hands of a good player who is using the Codex to its fullest, I don't think that they have many bad matchups. I think that I may do a video on them later because the Codex is also like sort of monumentally borked in terms like mechanically in terms of some of the rules that it contains within it. Silence my phone real quick here, chat. So I think that's another one that we can maybe skip over. So if we cut down the top 2 of the meta, or maybe top 3, which in my opinion are Astra Militarum, some varieties of Space Marines, and Dark Angels specifically, then we actually get a pretty holistic view of the things that I think will continue to be good as the season goes on. Now we're entering March, so we're about to hit the 3-month period. We may see a shake-up FAQ relatively shortly, which could potentially curb the power level of Space Marines. I think that a lot of people are expecting potentially a Space Marine change to maybe Devastator Doctrine, I think, is the problematic part of it. The Space Marine factions that don't rely on Devastator Doctrine tend to be good, but not phenomenal. And there's very little reason not to just gravitate to a Devastator Doctrine subfaction if you're in Space Marines right now. And I think that's problematic. So I think I would be shocked if we didn't see a change to Devastator Doctrine, or at least Codex Warfare, which is the big incentive to play Devastator Doctrine, because you can basically just free roll a 15-point secondary if your opponent has a high enough volume of units and you focus on heavy weapons, and that cuts like 90% of the Codex out of playability, which is really crappy. So you want to play Space Marines, but the easiest Space Marines to play are Iron Hands, and Iron Hands only benefit heavy weapons. So you just try to take as few rapid fire weapons in your and assault weapons in your army as possible, which are weapon types that Space Marines traditionally are like predicated on. You talk about things like all their infantry, all their troop choices are very rapid fire weapon focused. So you're taking all the classic Space Marine units and removing them from the equation. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a change there, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a change to Astra Militarum. But once those two are kind of dealt with, we're in kind of a, I think, I have a sneaking suspicion here, everybody, which is that once we see a nerf to the top armies in the game, Arks of Omen may be the continuation of the 40k golden age of kind of being able to win with anything, because we have some, like, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen wins with, we have these Black Templars right here. Black Templars, Wheat City Open over here. I think these are supposed to be 5-1. It's probably a typo. 2 Black Templars at 5-1. We have a Death Guard at 5-1. We saw a Tyranids. Here's a Tyranids with a 3-0 and 2. 2 draws in there. That was unfortunately using WTC scoring, which is very draw heavy. Chaos Demons clearly are very, very strong also. We have Asteriani, very strong. Other Space Marine subfactions, incredibly strong. Space Wolves, Iron Hands, all this stuff is in here. Leagues of Votann's showing up. We got a Tyranid at 5-0 at one point, which I think I'm going to do a video on probably tonight. which is obviously exciting for me. That was this past weekend. That's the second worst faction in the game, chat, by win rate, and still is putting up W's. We got a couple of Heretic Astartes. That is, outside of Deathwatch, I believe, the number one worst faction in the game in terms of win rate. Adeptus Custodes are obviously all over the place. The entire Eldari super faction. So, like, once we get past these Astra Militarum and these Archangels and all this stuff, then the game looks really, really, really cool. And so, yeah, that's what I want to focus on today, everybody, is all these cool other factions that are maybe not as represented as they could be, but, and are maybe suffering in win rate, but that people are still making work. Nid's not dead yet? No, I don't. Yeah, I agree, chat. I agree. Gavin Kennedy, hey, you were 36 with Death Guard? That's awesome, dude. Congratulations. Should we start talking about Death Guard? That's the first one on the list over here at Wheat City Open. Curtis Strong running Death Guard. Inexorable. Typhus, Malignant Plague Caster. A tenor of Plague Marines with all the special weapons. Blightlord Terminators, Deathshroud Terminators. A Dreadclaw Drop Pod. We got Drop Pod tech coming out here. I wonder what we put in the Drop Pod, chat. Now, I kind of like this. We have the Drop Pod alongside Mortarion. I wonder if Mortarion gets a little bit of a leg up because of strategic reserving. Probably not. I doubt you strategic reserve that guy. But this is a lot of beef to be able to like force into somebody's face in turn one, right? You have a bloat drone. It's good as central objective manipulation because he can send in the central objective. He has a 6-inch heroic intervention, and can really force like enemy obsec to not touch it. And even with a 6-inch heroic intervention, it's difficult to get to a position where you can touch the objective with a pile-in and consolidate, which would normally get around heroic intervention. Because in order to get within 3 inches of the objective marker with a consolidate, then you would need to be 6 inches away from the bloat drone. So you have to start like 6.1 inches away, which kind of gets tough if your opponent doesn't give you anything to charge. So even if your little 5-man idiot, OBSEC squads are running in there, this bloat drone might be able to just kill them. And he has a flesh mower, so he's good at that. We then have 2 PBCs, 2 Plague Burst Crawlers, with their big laser beams, which are huge T8 vehicles. They're -1 damage, tough to kill. Plus Mortarion, one of the most difficult models in the game to kill, especially if he goes first and Miasma of Pestilence gets cast. Then he's -1 to hit, -1 damage, 5+ damage ignore. And then on top of that, also if you're going first, you're also putting this Dreadclaw Drop Pod down in the middle of the table. So that's sort of difficult. And I wonder if we put the Plague Marines in there. I wouldn't be too surprised. Now, we also have a Plague Surgeon who can heal, I believe. And then he has the Fugaris Helm. Now, this has been a while since I've seen these on the table. So I'm going to have to look up what that one does. It's +3 inches on aura abilities. And then the Plague Surgeon has a damage ignore, yeah. Yeah, he has a 3-inch damage ignore, so he's almost literally just a apothecary. He can heal somebody for D3 if they're infantry, unfortunately not Mortarion. And then he has a 3+ damage ignore that punches up to a 6, or a 3-inch damage ignore that pushes up to a 6-inch. So he can also protect these Terminators and stuff that are sitting in the middle of the table. That's sick. All right. I'll buy it. We have a Tallyman with Toll Keeper. So that actually speaks to me that we're maybe not... I guess we're probably dropping the Plague Marines, and then the Toll Keeper drops on the Blightlord Terminators in turn 1. Because he gives them +1 to hit and exploding 6s for rerolls. And you often want a gun unit to put that on. We don't see any Dreadnoughts in this list. So there's no other targets for it. So that's probably what we do. And then if these guys are in Deep Strike, you obviously can't target them with the Toll Keeper. So they come in next turn. And then if they survive, you can Toll Keeper them. And you get exploding Melta-Guns, which is cool. That's kind of fun. I like that. All right. Good stuff from Death Guard. Black Templars. Let's take a quick look at both these Black Templars. Let's see what the differences are. They may be the same. Ooh, very different, in fact. One of them is running only Grimaldus. Okay. All right. Who needs Helbrecht? That guy's a chump. Get him out of here. So I think people have been talking a lot about these Sword Brethren squads and how efficient they are with free weapons. 88 points gets you 4 models of the Thunderhammer, a pair of Lightning Claws, and a pistol. Okay, interesting. an axe, and a sword. And then the base sword brethren are 3 attacks, right? So you get 4 Thunderhammer attacks, 6 Lightning Claw attacks, 4 Power Axe, 4 Bolt Pistol, or 4 Power Sword. Is that correct? Do I have that math right? Or are they 2 base attacks and they'll go up to 3 on the charge? But for 88 points, it's a pretty solid. That's a pretty solid investment to get like a floating power or Thunderhammer dude. Especially because, you know, being core keyworded, like you can peg OPSEC on them in the command phase. So if your opponent doesn't have the beef to deal with multiple units of these guys that are all like, you know, devout pushing around the objective, you can just steal their objectives away really easily. So here's the sword brethren. Yeah, they're 3 base attacks plus shock assault. So there's the high attack volume. So you get 8 power weapon attacks, 4 Thunderhammers, and 6 Lightning Claws. It's too bad we can't like Relic Bearers the Claws of Mordred on there, or the Mortal Wound Relic. But you want that on the big units anyway, so you can regenerate them. A Terminator Assault Squad, 3 Gladiator Lancers, and 5 Impulsors. There we go. That's what we're putting in here. So we have Assault Terminators, Incursors, 3 Primera Sword Brethrens. They have to go into the Impulsors because they're... what's the word? Because they are dedicated transports. So unfortunately, we do have Incursors, but they don't get forward deploy, basically, in this list. Yeah, because I don't believe Chaplain Grimaldus can go in because he's not Primaris keyworded, right? Only Helbrecht is, I believe, the special character who is Primaris. Yeah, he's... Oh, no, he is Primaris. What? Grimaldus got Primarisized. I guess I don't know if you would want to do that, though, because then you can't recant litanies on the first turn. So, well, I guess you have an option. Now, the interesting thing as well is that Black Templar's vehicles get multi-meltas because they put multi-meltas on an upgrade sprue for the Black Templars. I think when the Impulsor came out, they just like stuck a sneaky little multi-melta in there. And from then on, they had to keep printing that Black Templars vehicles could get multi-meltas. And because they made all the upgrades free, you get free multi-meltas everywhere. The other thing about Black Templars is that they don't have a super doctrine. So they only have their like Oaths mechanic. So there's no incentive to move past Devastator. You could get +1 AP on your melee weapons, which is fine. But if you're running like a bunch of power weapons, you're all AP 3-ish anyway. So you probably don't care so much about that, which means you actually unlock Codex Warfare for yourself. 3 Gladiator Lancers. So they each have the 2-shot laser destroyer cannon, the D3 + 3 damage gun. You have and 3 multi-meltas there, so you have 8 multi-meltas between them and the Impulsors. A ton of Stormbolter shots. I guess those don't count for Codex Warfare, but you have a pretty good outlet for Codex Warfare, and then all of that gets rerolls because of Rabudi Gilliman over here. So we are making use of the FAQ for Arks of Omen, where you can take Gilliman in other Space Marine chapters, which, by the way, I did myself. I took him in White Scars yesterday, which I had a great fun with. So that's why we don't see Helbrecht, is because he has a 12-inch reroll 1's aura, and then he also gives +1 to advance and charge. So these guys can hop out of their Impulsors and get +1 to their charge. This list is really off the wall. I love this, chat. This list is cool. Very cool. This is the other one, and this one looks a little bit more standard. We are using Relic Bearers upgrades. We have Vanguard Veteran Squads. Yeah, this is kind of a normal list. Grimaldus, Helbrecht, Primaris Chaplain. He is running no Breviary. The Crusader's Helm. And he has a Warlord trait? What's his Warlord trait? Rights of War. Okay, fair enough. So Crusader's Helm is also, I believe, extended aura range. Just like the Fugaris Helm. Basically on the same page here. Black Templars and Death Guard, same chapter, in fact. I've never seen them both together in a picture, so they must be the same person. That is... Yeah, +3 auras, and then you can target someone within 9 and put them in Assault Doctrine every command phase. So you can get +1 AP and stuff. So 8 Aggressors, no Relic Bearers upgrades on them. 5 Blade Guard Veterans, 1 Sword of Judgment. So he gets the 3 damage melee attack. Is he a Champion of the Feast? He's not. A Judiciar, an Apothecary. Wow, look at all the characters. We got 5 characters going on. Let's go. that right? 5? Yeah. 10 Thunderhammers. Here's the champion of the feast on the Terminator Sergeant with the Thunderhammer. And then 2 5ers of Vanguard Veterans Lightning Claws, 1 with Holy Orb, so the targeted fight last. And an Eradicator Squad for Hellbrecht to point rerolls at to begin with in the beginning of the game. So this is much more standard of what I would see, what I would expect to see out of a Blood Angels list, or a Black Templars list, not Blood Angels. This Kyle Thompson's list over here is very cool. I appreciate that list. That list is awesome. We have some Astra Militarum. I said I wasn't going to talk about them, so let's just skip it. Whatever. Chaos Demons. Now the interesting thing about Chaos Demons is that they're still kind of the sleeper hit. They're like the sleeper winner of Arks of Omen, all the way through Nephilim. Chaos Demons have always been good. And they've kind of snuck under the radar a little bit. I think people are realize how good they are, but it also requires you to play very well to play Chaos Demons well, because they're like it's easy to lose with. They're very strange. And the other thing is that there is no like Chaos Demons list. Because you can play every sub-faction, and the sub-factions don't really share units across them. You could play Undivided. You could play Disciples of Bellicor. The Undivided list is either like a bunch of Bloodletters and Demonettes, or the big stompy monster boys. Or you could play like pure Slaanesh. Pure Khorne is playable. Like even some pure Nurgle lists get played. Pure Tzeentch also gets played. So like literally the Chaos Demons Codex within it contains like 6 additional codexes worth of list builds. So it's got that depth that you're looking for when it comes to competitive armies. Like, you know, where people keep talking about Tyranids being like, oh, Tyranids will just adapt to a different army variety, even though their normal units got nerfed. Demons are like the same way. They were relying on Bellicor, they were relying on Flamers. Both of those things got touched a little bit. Bellicor didn't really get nerfed, but he did. He lost his universal Warpstorm access like ages ago. But there's still, like, you could just switch to a different sub-faction. You just switch to pure Slaanesh, or you just switch to, like, Nurgle T9 spam, or you switch to Bloodletter spam or something. There's just so much resilience and, like, flexibility in the codex. It actually ends up being really crazy. Yeah, so this is not Disciples of Bellicor. We are running the big boys. Mammon in here. I love this guy. Gives reroll 1s for Nurgle demons, including Demon Engines, which is great. It's any Nurgle demon. He can even like point rerolls at great and clean ones. A little change caster for some Gaze of Fate. He's going to do some psychic actions probably. And then Bloodthirster with Blood Drinker, Talisman, Brazen Hide. So this is the tank thirster guy. He's got the 8 wound phase cap. He's got the 5+ damage ignore and the wound regeneration, but no Argath King of Blades. Shame. Damn shame. And then we have Beasts of Nurgle. This list is cool. 9 Beasts of Nurgle. Super duper tanky. They have a bunch of attacks, and they can, if they roll 6s to hit, they just automatically convert into mortal wounds all the way through. So you don't even have to roll a wound if they roll a 6 to hit. So any rerolls you can source on them are great, which is why you often see them with Bellicor, because he can point rerolls at them with his Warlord trait. But also Mammon over here. Mammon gives them reroll 1s, which is solid. So you're making a little bit of a brick of Beasts of Nurgle. It's very tanky army here. Pink Horrors to send a back objective and just be basically immune to shooting. A bunch of Plague Bearers and then some War Dogs to add your actual shooting. Very cool. Maman? Maman. I think it's like French. I think he's a Frenchman, chat. He's Maman. Maman transfigured. Oui, oui. Beasts of Nurgle's underrated? We are seeing them a lot recently, so I think they are maybe appropriately rated. I think they were underrated when the codex dropped. Everyone was like, oh, that's cute, but like people will just kill them. And then as you start rolling the math, and you're like, well, I -1 to hit. I ignore all your AP. I like don't get hit by grav cannon, so like high volume's not that good in a lot of situations. I'm like kind of high toughness, so like strength 5 weapons kind of bounce. Like, actually, do I die? Hold up. Wait a minute. And then if you play them in Disciples of Bellicor, it goes crazy. So your opponent probably kills the first unit of Beast of Nurgle, but the question is, can they then kill the second and third units of Beast of Nurgle? And the answer is probably no. And plus the fact that they also, I mean, they do the same thing that we just talked about with that Fetid Bloatdrown. They heroically intervene 6 inches. So you just sit them on an objective, and they just, like, surround the objective. They make the little Nurgle symbol, the 3 dots, like, on the objective with their bases, and you can't get anywhere near it, because the whole unit's just going to murder you. Your opponent has to pull out their, like, all the old school anti heroic intervention tech that you used to see like ages and ages ago in 8th edition, where you have like units that are like strung so that the unit can't intervene and maintain coherency and like all this stuff. You have to get really, really creative with it. Heroic Skill Gamers, Houston Open. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to talk about some Heretic Astartes, but Astromel's Arm's boring. Let's whatever. play a more interesting faction. Thoughts on World Eaters running into top meta lists? Exclamation point lists in chat gets you to the Discount Games Inc. site. Assuming the bot works, let me give it a shot. Bot. There it is. Boom. Oh, that was Nurgle Matt. Nurgle Matt, I appreciate you. There you go. Also, the bot's there. So if you want to check out this website, exclamation point list, it's Discount Games Incorporated. They're a cool online retailer, but then they also host like top 5 lists from all the major GTs and stuff. They just stick them on there. Usually they update Mondays with whatever happened over the weekend, which is awesome. So it's a super cool resource. Not sponsored, but I do help them out sometimes. So full disclosure. Oh, who are we playing? Black Legion. Sick. That's cool. Black Legion's underrated, I think. I think they were overrated when their codex came out because the other sub-factions were so good. But I think that now that we're on this, like... minimal OBSEC meta, where everyone's just trying to kill each other, I think Black Legion being able to give OBSEC to like Terminators and take OBSEC away from their opponent stuff that has it is really, really good. So if you're relying on like, oh, I'm going to Rites of War a bunch of Deathwing Terminators and like, let's go. And then like 5 Legionnaires come up and just remove OBSEC from you and 1 Terminator takes the objective away and you're like, this sucks. And I think that's actually really appropriate for Black Legion. That's kind of their thing, is primary objective control. So we got Abaddon, a Golax and Decayed Demon Prince with Mark of Nurgle, a Master of Possession, normal stuff, Terminator Sorcerer. We have a Sorcerer and a Master of Possession? Whoa. So this is Veilbreaker Plate. That is not the... it's Conqueror's thing is the OBSEC aura, right? Do we not have the OBSEC aura in this list? Or is that the one and I'm just forgetting what all my rules are? Veilbreaker Plate. Reduces armor penetration by 1 against the bearer, so he gets armor of contempt. And it gives you a redeploy. Okay. That's interesting. Huh. Cool. Yeah, so I don't think we have the OBSEC aura, but I guess we're only running Legionaries in this list, so it actually doesn't matter that much. I was like, oh, what color are we painting our Black Templar or our Black Legion Terminators today? And we didn't take any. So there you go. This is a very different list. 2 10-man cultist mobs, 3 units of 5 Legionaries, Mark of Khorne on them, and chainswords and axes and melta guns. They got all those weapon upgrades for free, and then Mark of Khorne buffing your melee, plus the icon. 2 Decimators with Soul Burner Petards. Love to see those guys. Just a mortal wound gun. If they hit you, take a mortal wound. Bam. Got them. And then that's I think we're gonna see more mortal wound tech as Dark Angels continue to be strong, because they have very little defense against mortal wounds unless they take Lazarus or a Chaplain, and the Chaplain's kind of whatever. Lazarus is okay, but then he requires you to heroic support if you're taking Azrael or Samael, and he can't double up with them. And you start running out of HQ slots and taking too many characters. So a lot of times you're just relying on your 6-up damage ignore from your apothecary, and that's oftentimes not enough if you hit heavy mortal wound output. And then a bunch of Chaos Bikers. Mark of Tzeentch and the Chaos Bikers for +1 AP. With flamers on them. Okay. So we can advance 20 and shoot 2 flamer, AP 1 flamers at people. Alright. I'll buy it. That seems good. Plus 10 Rubric Marines with flamers as well. I kind of like this list, chat. We have a warp time to push these A warp time and the redeploy to push all these flamer units forward. This is like very technical list, and then the flamer units can just burn people and kind of screen for the decimators. Cool. Got a bunch of Adeptus Custodes over here at Viking Invasion. Michael Klangby. Is it Klangby? Klangby? Or is it Klangby? I don't know. Somebody will have to at me with that one. We've got... Let's see. We're in Shadowkeepers today. Blade Champion. Everybody's on Blade Champions these days. We also have Blade Champions in this other list? We don't. Okay, fair enough. So Stasis Oubliette Lock Warden, so ignores fight last on somebody and ignores invulnerable characters. And then a Dawn Eagle Shield Captain, Trajan Valoris, 4 units of Custodian Guard, just regular Presidium Shield and Guardian Spear guys, that's normal. 3 individual Alarius Custodians, 2 Vixillus Praetors, 1 with Defensor, 1 with Magnifica. So it's light and dense cover on these guys. I think trying to just protect these Virtus Praetors. This is a big squad of Virtus Praetors. Holy crap. So kind of huge tanky squad of Praetors. I assume that a lot of the stratagems got locked off of Virtus Praetors for Adeptus Custodes, right? But I don't believe that Grim Resolve did for Shadowkeepers. Grim Responsibility, excuse me. Yeah, it's only non-vehicle units. So you can still -1 strength people shooting at them. And there's like a lot of strength 7 going around right now. So T6 enemies that give your opponent -1 strength is just equivalent to Transhuman. Or Arcane Genetic Alchemy, I should say. Yeah, their Transhuman is only targetable on infantry, and Auspice is also only targetable on infantry. So that's the only defensive strategy we can use. But they are also -1 to be hit, +1 save. Thanks to the Vixillus Praetors. Nice. Good stuff. And then they're tough to kill in melee because they're also -1 attack against them. Andreas Holm, also playing Adeptus Custodes. Kind of a similar build. Only 1 Vixillus with the Magnifica, the dense cover. We're running Venatari today, though. So, Dawn Eagle Shield Captain, Orc Exemplar, Superior Creation for the 5-up damage ignore, Castellan's Mark for the redeploy, and Tip of the Spear. So, reroll 1s to hit and wound on the charge. We got Trehan, 3 units of Sagittarium Custodians. Got to get that Emperor's Chosen reroll. 2 units with Presidium Shields, 2 individual Alaris Custodians, the 1 Vixillus Praetor, and then 2 of 3 Venatari. Kinetic Destroyers! We did it! We're back to Kinetic Destroyers, chat. Oh my god. That's sweet. We haven't seen Kinetic, the pistol Venatari in a really, really long time. 3 Virtus Praetors as well. They're a little bit tougher than the Spear Venatari. Obviously not as melee-oriented, but if you're just looking for guys to run around on objectives, the pistols are just fine. And their bucklers are basically just Misericordias in melee anyway, so they still have like 5 attacks? 4 attacks? I guess 4 attacks with the floating reroll. I think they're AP2 in melee. Is that right? The buckler is strength 6 AP2. So they have 3 strength 6 and 1 strength 5 all AP2 weapons in melee, so that's like fine. They mix it up with little units just fine. But then their destroyers are pistols, so they can also shoot those in melee as well. And then some Virtus Praetors and Witch Seekers. That's a cool list as well. We're just basically just backlining with a bunch of Sagittarium Custodians and Venatari, and then I guess we're ranging forward with Venatari and the Virtus Praetors, and holding down the midboard with Presidium Shield guys. It seems like these, we're seeing less and less of like the Warden spam lists that are just huge bricks of Wardens. I think people maybe have figured out ways to kill them. We're seeing more of these like kind of MSU style where you just build tons of 3 model units, which feels very Custodian. I feel like that's the platonic ideal of a Custodian army. The Lancers are great for sure for the Venatari. I do really like seeing them. Seeing those guys. After I got turned on to them, I think a couple weeks ago when I was on stream here, I hadn't really considered Venatari Custodians until people started running them. I was like, oh my god. Yeah, these are correct. These seem like the way to go because you want to be charging, right? Whereas the Pistol Custodians, you kind of want to be staying a little bit longer, or a little bit farther away at range. The Melee Custodians, you want to be just getting in there. It is a bit weird that they're like so much easier to kill than the other Custodian infantry, but if you're just looking to trade for objectives with them, it's probably fine. Let's see. We got some Tyranids to talk about. Renegades open. Another Chaos Demons list. This is... Oh, this is like a classic Undivided list. This is just a big Stompy Boys list. Be'lakor and Scarbrand together at last. A Changecaster and Transweaver. Endless Grimoire on the Changecaster, so he can continuously get new spells every turn. Which is actually very cool. It's a very cool relic, by the way. It sucks that the relic selection in Chaos Demons is a little tough because all of their relics are really sweet. So this one, it lets you perform an action in the shooting phase, I believe, to get a new psychic power. And you just continuously perform that action as long as he's not like shooting his little staff at you. And it slows him down a little bit, but he just continuously opens his toolbox as the game goes on. So he's like, next turn I might need a Infernal Flames. I have it now, which is very cool. 2 units of 10 Demonettes, 2 units of 3 Nurglings. And then we're on Fiends and Flamers. So 3 Flamers, 1 6, 1 5, 1 3, 3 Screamers, 2 of 3 Fiends, and an Exalted Flamer. Wow, we're all in on the Flamer combo today. I guess no hit rerolls. Oh, no, we have Be'lakor. He's got his Whirler trait, so he can point rerolls at a Flamer unit, and then you can put him next to the Exalted Flamer to go to Strength 6, and then you can +1 win them with a Changecaster. We've done it! We have the whole combo assembled. Hell yeah. This is another very technical list. Lots of small units. And then Demonettes to obsec things away from the middle. No, so it's Scarbrand, but no Bloodthirster, which is interesting. Be'lakor is kind of being a Bloodthirster, I guess, because he's probably going to port Scarbrand in mid-game. Scarbrand gets shot to death a lot, but not if you've like flamered down a lot of your opponent's stuff, and then Scarbrand comes in to fight them. Thomas Warwick comes in with some Tyranids. 302. That's the downside of this unfortunate, unfortunate WTC format over here. I know it's important that people like practice for WTC in their independent games, but the WT scoring format does not feel appropriate for singleton events. You get like actively punished for playing better games with people, which is a little bit, you know. You want the games to be as close as possible, theoretically. So playing against like the baby seal and getting hugely rewarded for it is a little bit silly. That's just because it uses differential scoring, by the way. It You don't score points based on how many points you scored. You scored points based on how many points you scored comparative to your opponent. So if you beat your opponent 100 to 10, then you get tons of points. But if you beat your opponent 51 to 50, then you get very little points. And that even, I believe, counts as a draw. You have to beat them by a specific margin to actually get the win, which means that you end up with these weird scores a lot of times where you're coming in with multiple draws in the final round. So technically undefeated Tyranids over here, but 2 draws is like unfortunate. And I think that's probably where a lot of factions sit if they don't have great faction secondaries, right? So like Tyranids are a good example where they can take like cranial feasting sometimes, but then they're almost entirely reliant on pretty mediocre generic secondaries, and so they have to beat you on primary, and if you're good enough at your primary game, they just don't do it. So they score like 80s. They very consistently score 80s a lot of times, which means they don't win big a lot. So we have a Hive Tyrant, a Shard Gullet Hive Tyrant, the big B 5 damage gun. Let's go. A Direct Guidance Neurothrope, and a Tyranid Prime. Hell yeah! So it gives you roll 1s and the exploding 6s once per game. A couple Tyranid Warriors, 2 units of Hormagaunts for just disruption. What Hive Fleet are we in, by the way? Oh, cool. Didn't put your sub-faction down there, my guy. Probably... I don't know, actually. I guess, like, we have Zoanthrope, so it's probably Leviathan. So we can recast the Zoanthrope imperative a lot. But, yeah, that probably makes sense. Alright, so Tyrant Guard to protect the Hive Tyrant. Zoanthropes for the 4+ invuln on something, or 5+ on the little guys. 6 Raveners. We are really like banking on these nerfed units that all went up in points value. 6 Raveners. It is good to have an aggressive unit that you can use to trade for objectives, but for 270 points, that's a lot of points. That's a lot of money right there, is what that is. 1 individual Carnifex with a heavy venom cannon, 1 Screamer Killer with all the upgrades: Adrenal, Toxin, Spore Cysts. So he's +1 strength and movement, and then Spore Cysts for cover all the time. And then another Screamer Killer with no Synaptic Enhancement. So this one is Synapse, so it's Transhuman all the time. The other one you can pay for Transhuman on. And then one of them you can point the Zone Throw Imperative at to give an invuln. And then we have an invuln on the Tyrannifex all the time. And these Screamer Killers do get legitimately hard to kill. One thing I like to combo is like there's the Reinforced Carapace, I think is what it's called. But it's +1 save against damage 1 weapons. And because Screamer Killers naturally reduce damage by 1, it also works on damage 2 on them. So you can have 2 Screamer Killers be incredibly tough to kill. One of them's at like a 0+, the other one's at a 1+, 4+ Transhuman. And then you also have a Tyrannifex sitting over here at Stalwart with a 4+ invuln. So like, for this little idiot unit that's just like wanders around the middle, if you stack the buffs on them, if you pay like 50 points to make a Screamer Killer tough to kill, they are super tough to kill. And that's cool. Win loss dry is the way that records in competitive events is usually written out. So it's 3 victories, 2 draws, no losses. Which is exactly the same that we have for this Raven Guard player. So this is cool. We get to see some Raven Guard on the table. These guys are one of the worst performing sub-factions in the game, but I mean, Space Marines are fine, so I don't know if that's too bad. But it's cool to see Raven Guard on the top because we don't see that kind of list too often. What do we got? A Phobos Captain. He's running Corvidari Bolts. Now I'll cop this one, Chan. I have no idea what the special relic bolt for Raven Guard does. So let you shoot characters? That's what I feel like it would do, right? They're all about sniping people. So he can fire... Oh, he fires indirect. Whoa, okay. And he gets +6 inches of range. And I believe it's the Mastercrafted Instigator Bolt Carbine, so I think it's range 33 damage base, so it goes to range 36. That's kind of fun. For 1 CP, you just get this like dude who can just plink heavy infantry out of your opponent every turn. Mastercrafted Instigator. Oh, I'm on Captain. Not Phobos Captain. Yeah, strength 4, AP 2, 3 damage. It naturally ignores lookout. Okay. And then you can shoot indirect. So if you have little characters, this guy just like blinking at you all day. He has Maxter Marksman as well, which I believe does mortal wounds on top of normal damage. Is it right? Is that a Vanguard Warlord trait? Oh no, +1 damage. So it goes to damage 4. So if you have a 4-wound character, he could just shoot you from anywhere and you might die. It is indirect fire if you can't see them, so it is -1 ballistic skill, and you get +1 save. But it's already AP 2, and it is, I believe, an assault weapon? It is, yeah. So it gets the benefit of Tactical Doctrine, and then you're +1 to hit and wound in Tactical Doctrine, so you get around the -1 ballistic skill. This combo is actually sweet. And if you're T3, you wound on 2s. So if you're a little like a little guard character or whatever, those are in big command squads now, so it's tougher to single them out. But if you're in a little guard character guy, you go to Tactical Doctrine, you hit on 2s, wound on 2s, AP 3, AP 2, I guess, because you reduce the invulnerability, or you reduce the characteristic. So you save on like probably a 6 or your invuln, and if you fail, you just die. All right, that's classic. I haven't seen that in a long time. And this guy also has an Omni Scrambler and forward deploy as well. So he can randomly, if you're worried about, like, you know, turn 1 deep strikes or something, and you have a safe place where he can stand in front of your army, and he actually acts as another infiltrator squad. Or he stands in the back of your army, like way, way far in the back. He's got a... and then, yeah, it can just basically screen out your whole back line. That's really cool. We have a cool chaplain. This guy has Rites of War, Swift and Deadly, which is, I believe, Advance and Charge. Because he has the double Warlord trait. It is Advance and Charge, yep. And then Caven Shrike, who gives you charge rerolls, which is cool. He's also... Caven Shrike's actually just like kind of a bot, like he's a boss. He's a chapter master, right? He gives a he gives a chapter master reroll, I believe. He's kind of mediocre in melee if you're high toughness. He's like, he caps out at like basically strength 4, but he's got all lightning claws, so it's strength 4 rerolling. He's AP 3/2 damage, which is solid. And then he has 7 attacks on the charge, and he can do mortal wounds as well. Yeah, and he's the chapter master. So he's actually, I think he's a little bit slept on. He's also move 14 for like no reason. And the Raven Guard have a lot of internal synergies with jump pack units, so he also benefits from those as well. So interestingly, unless there's another character in here, there's no Master of Ambush in this list. None at all. So we're not forward deploying. We're just forward deploying the regular stuff. We can pre-game move whatever we want, but that's it. 8 aggressors, 10 Vanguard veterans. Looks like a mix of swords, hammers, blades, and claws. A big assault squad, 10 assault marines, a thunderhammer, 2 eviscerators. Wow, that's just like actual just fighty assault marines. We're not running special weapons on them. Wild. Okay. And we do have Rites of War and the jump pack on the chaplain, so he can keep up with them and give them seal objectives. 2 Outrider squads, 2 Stormspeeder Hammer Strikes, and 2 Eliminator squads. So they can kind of wombo combo with the Phobos captain. If you ever stand out in the open, those guys will just like insta-gib your character. You have to keep like really, really safe. This is a very technical list. So 6 bikers split into 2 units. 20 jump infantry split into 2 units. And I guess in combat squad if they want to. Maybe you combat squad out into like 5 idiots with chainswords and then all the special weapons in a unit. So you have like 2 eviscerators and a thunderhammer plus 2 chainswords in a unit, and you can point rerolls at them from Cave In Shrike. And that's like your actual combat component, and then the other chainsword space marines are just utility guys, I guess. I could see that happening. And you can do the same thing with the Vanguard veterans too, because you have a bunch of you can take a thunderhammer like component where you have 3 thunderhammers and a relic blade, and you can take a lightning claw component where you have a bunch of lightning claws, or mix them however you need to. All right, good stuff. Good into AdMech Tech Priest too. Yeah, I can see it with AdMech. It is interesting because like the relative survivability of characters has increased pretty significantly. So I don't know how many get played that you can kill easily with the snipers, but I think oftentimes like you're still doing damage to your opponent's army even if you're just shooting random idiots. So I think that it's probably fine if you're forcing your opponent to reconsider their moves just to not get shot by you. Like if all their buff characters like sitting way in the back so you don't just like score assassinate for free or whatever, or Ozib moment, then you're probably in a fine spot. That's a cool frickin' list, chat. Saffron Slam had Leagues of Votann at the top. Urani Surtur Regulates. So this is the, if I remember my Leagues of Votann off the top of my head, the +1 toughness sub-faction. Yeah, +1 toughness and reroll failed morale checks. We have a Forge Master with Master Armor. What? A Shocker. An Experienced Eye High Call. A Lord Grimnir with the Murmuring Stick. The Wispy Stick. 3 units of 10 Hearthkin Warriors. Okay. That's not where I was expecting that to go. I guess they go to T5, right? So they're like kind of hard to kill with regular guns. 2 units of Chthonian Berserks. Go to T6, right? Those guys are base T5. That's solid. 2 units of Hernkin Pioneers and 2 Hecaton Land Fortresses. Big T9 Land Fortresses. Let's go. That's fun. That's a cool list. A lot of like mid-board OBSEC, which you oftentimes run out of with Leagues of Votann. Sometimes people just like rely on 3 units of 3 Hernkin Pioneers. I'm like, that's all the OBSEC I need. And then realistically, it's actually not. But as soon as you throw Hearthkin Warriors in there, especially with the Medipack, they actually get a little bit annoying to kill. And once you're like stacking +1 toughness on them, do we Fortify as well? Didn't put down our Grimnir's powers. You can Fortify them too, which I think also adds an additional +1 toughness, right? So you can get them to T. I guess you're doing Murmuring Stave, so you might be trying to like Psychic Interrogate or Ritual or something, but I don't know if I've ever really loved that in Leagues of Votann. Yeah, so you can go to T6 on the infantry with a 6+ damage ignore and the Medipack to nix a hit and get a guy back with a CP. All right, I'll buy it. You can put the Berserks to T7. Seems good. Got a Goffs Orc list here from Melee at Shiloh. Gaskell Thraka on this list. The big orc himself. It's oftentimes that you don't see like you don't see Gaskell Thraka enough, I think, in orcs. He's always like he's like a beast boss and some other guy in the Gaskell Thraka slot. But today we're taking a war boss and war bike alongside Gaskell. So we still have the dude who can like you know, under the wah, just get jetted forward and fight someone and then get killed and fight on death. Just the big smash character. And then you also have Gaskell to anchor for you. I think that Gaskell kind of helps a little bit of an issue that orcs oftentimes have where they roll to go first, they go first, and then they like just rock hammer your opponent. And if your opponent doesn't die or lose on primary within like the first 3 battle rounds, a lot of times the orc player has no models left. They just trade their models for victory points, like at a 1-to-1 ratio. And you get to the end game and you're like, oh crap, I have like the one character back here who can fight, and then the rest is dead. And everyone else is like beast snagga boys who are just getting murdered by bolt guns and stuff. And then like if you have Gaskell Thraka in the back, he eats like a slot for like a kill rig usually, like a big transport, but he hits way harder, or at least equivalent to a kill rig, and he doesn't get like tuned up by guns as hard. So we're on beast snaggas and 3 units of boys. 3 units of Gretchen with Orrible Gits. So I believe that they are OBSEC, right? Which they are not normally. Is that how that works? They have objective secured. Indeed. And they make everyone within 3 inches -1 to hit with ranged attacks. That's cute. Including orc units. 2 kill rigs. Interestingly, I believe that we can only put 1 thing in the kill rigs, right? Because we only have 1 unit of beast snaggas. And I think they can only carry beast snagga boys, if I remember correctly. So we're out of stuff to put in the second one. Yeah, beast snagga infantry. So I don't believe there's anybody else to go in there. So one of them's just empty. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't see any other people who go in this. Huh. So the other guys are just ground pounding it? We got a bunch of Killicans. We're using the cheap Killicans now. 35 points, 40 points apiece with a Scorcha? Or are they 30 points and then have a Scorcha? I think they're 30, right? You can get them real cheap with their weapons. Usually you see like rocket launchers on those guys, right? To use their improved ballistic skill. Not today, I guess. Double Squidcog Boys, Storm Boys, triple Warbikers, double Kill Rig. Pretty normal stuff. So no transport for Gazkul. Not really necessary. He usually just comes in, kind of like wanders in round 2 or something after your opponent's like started shooting the kill rigs. And then all the boys are ground pounding, which is a little interesting. But usually you have enough pressure with the Storm Boys and the Warbikers that they can like advance under that. Your opponent has to deal with the stuff that's directly in front of them first, and then you can kill the boys. And the boys usually get to charge turn 3 anyway. Seems good. Personally annoyed by final death mechanics because nobody armies do it. James Moriarty, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for that. Every orc player starts by telling you their army's weak and then commences whipping ass. Yeah, I think orcs have this victim complex where they're like, well, my army's really bad because it always dies. And then you're like, look at the score and you're like, yeah, but you scored 100 points every game. So, I mean, is it bad? That seems pretty good. I think the funky thing with orcs is that there's a lot on the roll to go first. If you roll to go second and you get like movement blocked or your opponent just kills all your transports with guns or whatever, you're like, oh boy. We're in for like a round 3 blah with the 6 boys we have left. But if your opponent doesn't have the ability to do that, or you're going first and you just put too much stuff in the middle for them to deal with, a lot of times like you just push them out on primary so hard. So they tend to be very inconsistent, but still very strong. When they're strong, orcs are like almost literally unbeatable. But the pendulum flips back the other way precipitously. They can die super fast if things don't go their way. All right, talking about Melee at Shiloh. This was streamed by Wargames Live, I believe. Brent Simon over here. Old buddy from the War Machine Hordes days. Nice, it's good to see him at 5-0. We got some Iron Hands from Jeremy Capco. Triple Redemptor, double Devastator, triple Gladiator Reaper. Honestly, basic bitch list. Howard Watts, however, absolute champion over here with pure Ultramarines. Let's go. Pure Ultras. We got Tiggy. We got a Primaris Deck Marine with Seal of Oath. So full rerolls against a single enemy unit. We got an Infiltrator squad. We got 2 Aggressor squads, 1 of 6, 1 of 3. This seems like the normal composition now, chat. I think it seems pretty straightforward because one of them can trade for Rights of War, right? And then as you are a Ultramarines list, you want one unit to be a big tanky unit that Tigerius can buff. So he wants like Psychic Fortress, -1 to hit them, like Might of Heroes, the unit champion, Veil of Time for fight first, and then just like put them in an aggressive position and be like, these guys are going to charge you if you don't deal with them, and they have a bunch of defensive effects on them. But you want that to happen like turn 2 after one squad went in, like killed a chaff unit, and then scored you oaths and then died. And then you can also, I believe you can give yourself reroll 1s when an opponent kills your Ultramarines unit, right? You don't need that. But you could, I guess, if you're trading one in Aggressor Squad. So it seems like every list now has these double Aggressor Squads. And that's interesting. I don't know if I rated Aggressors quite highly enough when I first started looking at the Codex. Because for 30 points, like, you compare them to... They have, like, more 2 damage attacks than you would get out of, like, a Terminator for equivalent, for example. And they have a gun. But their survivability is a little bit questionable. The upside is that, like, they have a higher toughness value, but if you have a big unit, you're usually transhumaning them anyway. So it almost doesn't matter so much. And then they're only a 3+ save. So they get, like, if they don't, they're on their invuln most of the time if they have one. If you fail your Psychic Fortress with Tigerius, which, to be fair, is unlikely because he's really good at casting. But it could get denied, it could get 4+ or something. Then that unit just, like, gone. So yeah, everybody's dead. 2 Invictor Tactical Warsuits. Nice to see these guys. So we can do the rapid redeployment, put them up in front. If your opponent wins the roll to go first, you're like, nope, 2 CP. They're back in my deployment zone. They're hiding from you. Please don't shoot them. 2 Redemptor Dreadnoughts. The other interesting thing about Invictor Tactical Warsuits is I think people overestimate how hard they are to kill. Because they are super squishy, those things. But if you're using them as like long-range fire support, a lot of times your opponent doesn't have the the beef to shoot them if they're dealing with aggressors and Redemptor Dreadnoughts and Storm Speeders in their face. 2 Redemptors to get... They also get... They're not core keyworded, unlike the Redemptors, even though they probably should be, to be honest, because they have like a guy inside. But Guilliman can give them rerolls, which is cool. The Redemptor Dreadnoughts are there. They can also get buffed by Tigurius, I believe, because they are core keyworded with Macroplasma and Gatling Cannons. 2 Sturm Speeders, Hammer Strikes, and then triple Eliminator Squads of Instigator Bull Carbines, and Guilliman himself. We paid for the Warworld trade on Guilliman, chat. I guess if you're playing pure Ultramarines, it gives Ultramarines within 6 inches of him, I believe, Heroic Intervention like a character. So if you're playing, that's part of the defensive Wombo combo on the big unit, the big aggressor unit. So like they're full rerolls because Guilliman has full rerolls in an aura for Ultramarines. 5 up if all of the buffs are on. 5 up inbound, -1 to be hit. Transhuman if you use the stratagem. And then if you don't charge them, they will just intervene you. Now, I don't know if we have a Rites of War. Oh, we do on the Tech Marine. Okay, cool. So we can give those guys and the Dreadnoughts Rites of War and the big brick in the middle. And then all of that stuff can defensive focus for each other. So if you charge into it, it's all shooting you with full rerolls, and it's like kind of disgusting. So the weakness of these lists is always shooting, because their defensive effects are good, but not like insurmountably good for most gun lines. But it's very difficult to engage in melee, and that's cool. Now, I think the downside for Guilliman's aura is that he only gives that heroic intervention to infantry, if I remember correctly. So the Redemptors, if you can like anti-overwatch yourself so you don't get killed by the defensive focus on the way in, then you can just charge the aggressor squad, and then you murder them, and these Redemptors just stand there like big idiots. Like, oh, hi. What's up, guys? How are you doing? I'm going to double check that just to make sure I'm not misspeaking here, everybody. I do remember in a lot of compositions that Warlord trade is like a little laughable. But in this one in particular, if you're trying to like stack every single buff on the aggressor squad, it makes a lot of sense. It is infantry and bikers. Yep, so it doesn't work on the Redemptors, unfortunately. Sag. And it's only a 6-inch aura, which is not great. But if he's in the middle with the brick, it's probably fine. Nurgle man, you just cage fought a bear and won? Hot damn, my guy. That's sick. What's the value of Abaddon giving full rerolls for the for real version in points or CP? Guilliman's different. So Guilliman gives reroll 1s within 12 inches to every Imperium unit, and he gives +1 to advance and charge, which is huge. That's why you see him in a lot of like we talked about Black Templars. That's why you see him in a lot of Black Templars and other melee armies, because he can buff your charges like passively. So he's a huge captain aura for any Imperium army. He's a huge movement buff for Imperium armies. And then for Ultramarine specifically, he has an additional 6-inch aura of full hit rerolls. So only hit rolls. This list has no wound rerolls outside of the Seal of Oath on a single enemy unit. You pick one unit, and then you seal within 6 inches of the Tech Marine to get wound rerolls against them. So Guilliman's like hit rerolls. It's tough to like. I mean, it's tough to assign a points value for it, right? It depends on the units that he's buffing. It depends on the volume of attacks you're making. It depends on, whether or not you can reroll against whatever you're shooting at. But unlike Abaddon, where Abaddon gives hit and wound rerolls to one Black Legion unit, Guilliman is only hit rerolls. Oh, actually, you do get wound rerolls. Excuse me. Guilliman has a reroll 1s to wound aura. I believe he's a lieutenant for Ultramarine specifically. This is just me like getting Guilliman wrong on stream again. I don't know how I keep forgetting this guy's abilities every time I read him. Because he has so many. Yeah, so he does reroll wound rolls of 1. So excuse me, I misspoke there, chat. He's not. Glad I caught myself. He's not only hit rerolls, he's also reroll once a wound. So his rerolls compared to Abaddon's are less effective, but affect a wider variety of units. So ultimately, you get more rerolls out of him over the course of the game, but you don't get the same like focused fire, where like this big Black Legion Terminator squad's like shooting entire armies to death by themselves. Guilliman pretty good in Blood Angels. Yeah, I think I appreciate that Space Marine players are now like exploring the Guilliman technology, because it's like getting to play Iron Hands outside of Iron Hands, where you're like, well, all my ranged attacks get reroll once to hit. Except also you also have this passive like charge buff that you can stack with other charge buffs. It's not independent, so it works on like the Blood Angels one. It doesn't. The only thing it doesn't stack with is the Chaplain Canticle of Hate, because that says irrespective of any other bonuses you have. So you can stack it with a bunch of White Scars bonuses. You can stack it with Blood Angels bonuses. You can stack it with Raven Guard bonuses. And then on top of that, he's also giving all your guns reroll ones. And he's just like a big beat stick by himself. He closes the game out really hard. So it's cool to see people like explore that technology. It's nice to see Guilliman back on the table. Because he definitely feels power crept, but now that he can buff a much wider variety of Imperium units rather than just being stuck with Ultramarines, it definitely feels like, I don't know, it's kind of a new lease on the faction. At least the sub-factions that aren't Iron Hands. I like it that he is eminently playable in the factions that aren't the top two factions, the sub-factions in the army, which are Dark Angels and Blood Angels. You're never going to see him in Dark Angels and Iron Hands. You're never going to see him in Dark Angels or Iron Hands. He doesn't really do anything for them. But he buffs almost every other chapter, which is cool. So that's like, I don't know. I think that was really smart of them, actually, to make Guilliman more open. He instead of becoming a buff to just Ultramarines, he becomes a buff to the entire faction. All right. Peyton Priest over here, playing some Genestealer cults. So we have this is the classic Myriad Cult combo. Stalwart, accustomed to toil, so we're only be wounded on a 3. Cold-Eyed Killers for rending and melee, so +1 AP on 6s to wound. Industrial Affinity to ignore hit penalties with your industrial weapons, and then War Convoys for a 6+ damage ignore on your bikey boys and vehicles. We got Color Morph, we got a Nexos for CP regen and stuff, a Sanctus for the sniper rifle. So we have a lot of anti-character stuff between the Color Morph and the Sanctus. An Acolyte Icon Ward, Magus with the Unwilling Orb, so army-wide deny. And a Primus. And then we're just on Neophytes and stuff. So we have the 1 Pure Strain Genestealer squad with the pregame move, so they can alpha people. 3 units of 10 Attilan Jackals, let's go. All in, 30 Attilan Jackals, and then a billion Neophytes. 1, 2, 3 of 20, 1, 2 of 10, and 2 Acolyte Hybrid units with Hand Flamers. So Hand Flamers on the Acolyte Hybrids. Every single Neophyte has the maximum number of seismic launchers and seismic cannons and grenade launchers that they can have. So there's a billion gunshots. We're going to expose and crossfire people to their deaths. And that's what's going on. Pretty standard stuff. We've talked about that quite a long time before. This says Tau Empire, though. That's wrong. Oops. Brad Chester played some Salamanders. That's very cool. I know Brad Chester's been like cycling through every single Space Marine sub-faction. He's just been playing one after another. Which I appreciate. He's like, oh, hey, Space Marines are good now. Let's find the best one. And he's currently like undefeated with them, so let's go. All right, we've got Primaris Chapter Master. So heroic supporting in also Vulcan Heston. Vulcan Heston, not the Chapter Master. It's so confusing. I wish that I wish that lore be damned. Just make all the characters the Chapter Masters. No, he's the Forge Father. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Vulcan Heston datasheet. So he gives you hit and wound rerolls, but only with Flame and Melta weapons, not everything else. So you get full hit rerolls from the Primaris guy. This is Power Sword and Relic Shield, dude. And then he's got Obsidian Aquila, so 6+ damage ignore and an aura. And then Vulcan Heston himself is here, so he can pick a unit, core character. They get hit and wound rerolls with the Flamey Boy weapons. And then he himself is like, okay, he's got a heavy flamer. And strength 6, AP 2, D3 damage melee weapon. What a guy. And then 3+ invulnerable save. He's one of the few remaining 3+ invulnerable saves in the game. 2 infiltrator squads. 6 model aggressor squad, classic, for Born Protectors, so you can overwatch people with them. The Primaris Apothecary, Chief Apothecary with Selfless Healer, so we're going to regenerate those guys. 1 Vanguard Veteran squad with a mix of weapons, 2 power swords, 3 power swords, 2 power fists. Interesting. We can buff those guys to the 9s with wound buffs and stuff in melee. So you don't necessarily need to take the lightning clauses to pay for the lightning clause. You could take, as we've seen before, you can take power weapons on the Vanguard Veterans, in Salamanders specifically, and you can stack +1 strength and +1 wound buffs on them so that they win most of the game on 4s anyway. 3 units of attack bikes with multi-meltas, 3 land spear tornadoes with multi-meltas. We're just all in. Let's go. We're all in on the multi-melta train. Let's do it. And then 2 units of devastators with las cannons, combi meltas on the sergeants, and an eradicator squad with melta rifles. This list is anti-tank to the 9s. Holy shit. How many multi-meltas do we have? 1, 2, 3, so 9, 12. And then these guys basically all have multi-meltas, so 18. No big deal. So we can point full rerolls at that huge eradicator brick, and they're terrifying. If they don't have a shot, we can do it on the attack bikes, and they're much faster. And then we just have devastator squads like sit in the back. We can pay a CP to count them as stationary, so they can move and fire their heavy weapons without penalty. And then they get reroll 1s because we have multiple captains back there and multiple sources of full rerolls. So we can full hit and wound reroll 1 unit with Vulcan. We can full reroll either the las cannons or the meltas with the chapter master. And then we just have like aggressors and Vanguard veterans to hold down the midboard with the apothecary next to them. It's interesting that we're running the selfless healer apothecary and the obsidian aquila, because a lot of times you would just like drop a Voxa Spiritum on the Primaris Apothecary to give him a 6-inch aura. But I guess the idea is that this is a module, potentially with Vulcan, that's going to wander into the middle of the table. There's no OBSEC in this list, besides the Infiltrators, I guess. There's no Rites of War. Huh, okay. Who needs it? And then the Chapter Master, or vice versa. Oh, I guess probably the Chapter Master sits in the back and pumps rerolls onto the attack bikes and the Devastator squads and gives them the 6-up damage ignore too. So it all has a 6-up damage ignore. Vulcan Heston's like kind of bounces between the two because he either buffs the Eradicators or the multi-melta bikes or the aggressors, whatever you need to. So it's very, very flexible, but it's like very... You have a lot of individual units that can do like interesting things, but a lot of it's going to be split between these two roles. Like either stuff's moving up the center or stuff's staying in the back. Which is pretty classic Salamanders. It's usually how Salamanders do. Oh, he lost this weekend? Fair enough. Dark Angel stuff to beat, chat. Best army in the game, maybe. Gene Stealer called it nipping at their heels, but nobody's really playing them yet. Yeah, the difference for missile launchers on the Devastators is pretty significant because you lose +1 strength is huge. The breakpoint between strength 8 and strength 9 is like enormous because you start wounding T8 stuff on 4s. So that +1 to wound is a big deal. But you want to progress out of Devastator Doctrine as quickly as possible for that list. Sometimes you can stick in for a couple turns if you need the extra AP on the multi-meltas. But usually, unless your opponent is T4, you want to be jumping to tactical as fast as you can so you get +1 to wound the Super Doctrine for all the multi-weapons. So the las cannons being AP3 instead of AP2 on the crack missiles is kind of a big deal as well. like, it's all told, the damage output against their favored targets is like enormously higher for the las cannons versus just the missile launchers. The missile launchers, I think, are a much more interesting choice if they are locked, if they're in Devastator Doctrine. So if you're running like Iron Hands or something, but you usually want to be on those las cannons, especially if you're not getting the Doctrine benefits. Speaking of Doctrine benefits, let's talk about something that +1 AP doesn't work against. That is Brent Simon's Chaos Demons list. This list is wild, by the way, chat. I watched this list play on Wargames Live. Absolutely sick. So it's Bellic. It's full Tzeentch. It's all Tzeentch today for the list. We got Bellicor. He's a Tzeentch Demon. Double Fate Skimmers. So we have +1 to cast because we've written News of Horrors on all of our support spells. Who needs Lords of Change, by the way? Get those guys out of here. Not even worth playing. We're all Fate Skimmers and Flux Masters today. 3 Exalted Flamers. So they have their 3 damage guns plus 3 units of Flamers, 2 units of 5 and 1 of 6. So they can get pumped up with... you can pay the Warp Storm points for +1 ballistic skill, give them rerolls from Bellicor, give them reroll 1s from a Fate Skimmer, and +1 to wound with Infernal Flames. And then just like let them loose. The entire, and then +1 strength from the Exalted Flamers. The entire combo is assembled here. Not even just the regular one where you're like, well, I guess we'll hit reroll and we're ballistic skill 3. No. We're ballistic skill 2 and rerolling 1s. Let's go. Basically full conversion on your Flamer attacks. We're almost back to pre-nerf Flamers. 6 Screamers. I guess that's another unit you could point rerolls at from Bellicor. He's just any non-vehicle demon. So you can point rerolls at them, and then they can, like, they're move 14, right? So they can just jet out and gank a unit and score you Reality Rebels in like a weird table quarter. And then 3 Burning Chariots, which have the same guns as the Exalted Flamers. So just once you get to 18 inches of this army, you just melt shooting. It's just wildly strong shooting. You pay for the 2 Warp Storm points, or 3 Warp Storm points, or whatever it is, for +1 ballistic skill every turn. And then you just dumpster people with a bunch of like ballistic skill 2, like strength 9, AP 3 damage gunshots with reroll 1s to hit from Bellicor. Just becomes this like roving band of just disastrous shooting. You're like pretty close to full rerolls at that point, because your entire army is hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, rerolling 1s to wound for the most part. Woof. Are the psychic powers on the Flexmaster legal if it isn't a Disciples of Bellicor army? I believe that they are, chat. I believe that the only requirement for to unlock the Noctic discipline is to have Bellicor in your army. I don't believe that you have to be in the Army of Renown. It's generate models from your powers from your army for the Noctic discipline. For models that know the Noctic discipline. And the requirement to do that is... I think they can just take it. I actually don't even think you need Bellicor, do you? The implication is that you can just have them. I don't know if that is the case. Are we looking at Fluxmaster? I'm not sure, actually. Maybe it's a rule that Bellicor has. Yeah, I don't know if I'm missing a rule or something. The implication is that any caster can take them, but it's not spelled out in their data sheet. So I'm not 100% sure. Because because there is a clause that says that Legionis Demonica casters can take spells from the Noctic Discipline. And then there's also a separate clause that says Disciples of Be'lakor Psykers can take it from the Noctic Discipline. So I don't know where the first one comes from. But I think that you can. I'm sure someone in chat knows. Yeah, it's definitely, it's a benefit of Disciples of Be'lakor for sure. This is certainly not a Disciples of Be'lakor army, though, to be fair. It is all Tzeentch. You can't be doing that in Disciples of Be'lakor, definitely. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if there's a section that defines any additional rules for psychic powers. Yeah. The question is not whether or not it's available in Disciples of Be'lakor. The question is whether or not it's available elsewhere outside of Be'lakor, because Be'lakor specifically knows powers from Noctic. I don't know about the other stuff though. It might be necessary to go to the codex proper in this case. Because I don't know if Waha here has the answer for us. Nobody can use it outside of Disciples of Be'lakor? Unless it's the Relic? Be'lakor's the Warlord, has his Warlord trait. The Everstave, what does that give you? Oh, that just gives you undeniable powers. I don't know, chat. Might be a mistake. I wonder if Battlescribe allows it, and we just didn't double check. I wouldn't be shocked, to be honest. Battlescribe is unfortunately not great with rules. Yeah, I don't see anything that would override it. So unless there's something in the Codex proper that I don't know about, which I'm honestly not going to do. I'm not going to like read through an entire Codex on stream right now to find out this one thing. Then I don't know. It could also be a Battlescribe thing, and that just like allowed it to happen, or it's a misclick or something. Having an extra Shrouded Step would be nice, chat, for sure. Then you could do like rituals and stuff with Be'lakor. Huge if true, for sure. Yeah, BS isn't always right. In fact, BS is typically wrong. If there's ever a question about whether a mechanic's legal in Battlescribe, the answer is probably not. Which is not a dig against Battlescribe. Like it's a community, like a community run app that look we get to use for free. So like, you know, it's great. Battlescribe's amazing, but unfortunately 40k is an unnecessarily complicated game, and it's impossible to catch every stupid interaction it allows, especially when you're like trying to code your own app for it. It's almost like this game should be simplified, and then we should I don't know, have like GW should make a system that actually has the correct rules in it, but they won't. So Battlescribe's what we got, and you know what, I appreciate Battlescribe. I think Battlescribe's great. All right. Yeah, it's definitely not a rules reference for sure, which is fine. I mean, it's like it's a calculator with extra steps, right? And I think that's all it needs to be. That we have Wikipedia to reference rules if we need them, so it's always worth double checking. The one that always catches people, by the way, and it came up. I had to play as Yanni like 3 times in the last week, which I did on stream, by the way, twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise. Go check out all of my VODs over there because we had some freaking sick games. Tyranids are currently destroying everyone, and it's great. The one that keeps coming up because I'm running Screamer Killers is that the Striking Scorpions do not do mortal wounds to monsters or vehicles, but Karandras does it to vehicles. And Battlescribe has Karandras's Mandiblaster's wording for the regular Striking Scorpions. So if you're running monsters and your opponent tells you that they can do mortal wounds to you, you say, that's Karandras only. That's not the regular Striking Scorpions. I think that came up twice in 2 games. And it's important to know. All right. Let's move on. There's a bunch of armies over here, as Asmoryl's Arm and Dark Angels and Iron Hands and stuff. We don't have to talk about that. We can talk about some Space Wolves, though, from Peeps of War GT. We are wildly behind. We have like another 20 events to talk about. We're going to speed run some of these, I think, chat. All right. Let's go. Linton Rowan playing Space Wolves. Triple Wolfen. 30 Wolfen. Let's do it. Phobos Librarian with Storm Caller. Chief Librarian. But no Psychic Mastery, which is sad. And Armor Indomitus, so use it at the once per game, 3+ damage ignore. Mordekai's Teeth Bolts on a Primaris Tech Marine. Can you put that in a Forge Bolter? I guess you can, right? That's sick. All right, cool. So that gives you reroll once to wound against something that you shoot at, which is sweet. 3 units of Wolfen, 3 individual Cyberwolves, an Astraeus and Gilliman. Oh my god. So this is a casual 930-point combo. We're just, in order to get rerolls on our, to up the accuracy on our Astraeus, we're paying 1,000 points for it. Let's do it. So Gilliman gives rerolls to everything, so he can give rerolls to the Wolfen, so they get +1 to hit on the charge, right? Because we're running, oh no. So we're not hitting on 2s. But we are Teslaing our hits on the Wolfen, because they're always in the Assault Doctrine. And that's interesting. That's an interesting thing for Wolfen. So we actually talked about this previously a couple weeks ago. The Wolfen are always considered, every time they make an attack, the army's considered to be an Assault Doctrine. So they can, if you take Codex Warfare and you sit yourself in Devastator Doctrine, you get 2 points every time the Astraeus kills something, because it's all heavy weapons. Then you get a point every time the Wolfen kills something, because you're also in Assault Doctrine when the Wolfen are twinging. So they get Teslaing attacks. They have 10 Thunderhammers. They get +1 to charge and rerolls from Gilliman, because he does not require core keyword. And then you get +1 to hit on the Astraeus from the Primaris Tech Marine. I don't know if the Mordekai's Teeth Bolts work on it. That might just be core. But I'm going to find out for you right now, chat. We're doing it live. And then it rerolls 1s from Gilliman as well. So it's hitting at 2s, rerolling 1s. All the Wolfen are probably rerolling 1s, especially if they're not too far away from the Astraeus. Gilliman, remember, has a 12-inch aura of reroll 1s. So it's 12 inches like from the back of the Astraeus, or from the front of the Astraeus, to Gilliman in the middle, and then 12 inches to the Wolfen. So if Gilliman's just like sitting by himself in the center, then you actually extend that aura like 26 inches between the 2 units of being affected by it, which is kind of insane. All right, here's the answer, chat. Mordekai's Teeth Bolts. Each time an attack is made. So yeah, you get +1 to hit on the Astraeus, reroll 1s to hit from the Tech Marine, or from Gilliman, reroll 1s to win from the Tech Marine. And it's going ham, chat. A 930-point Astraeus super heavy vehicle over here. Let's go. That is sick. This list is classy as hell. I love it. I love this list. How do you deal with this? You have to shoot the Wolfen. And the Wolfen are hard enough to kill because they're taking a ton of Thunderhammers and Storm Shields. So it's like a bunch of T5 3-up, 4-up save idiots. You have to put all your 2 damage guns into them, and then, like, as you do, and Astraeus and Gilliman are just wandering around the table, slowly tabling you. Like, it's very difficult to deal with. And you can't reliably, like, contest... If it's sitting on the midboard and getting Oza Moment, you can't reliably contest it, because if you do, the Wolfen will just heroically intervene you. This list actually seems very difficult to interact with in any meaningful way. You basically can't melee Wolfen, and you basically can't shoot an Astraeus to death. So, unless you're like Tau. So, like, guess I'll die? I like that list actually a lot. Another Black Legion list. More Black Legion coming out of the woodwork over here. Jason Ryder. Abaddon, a Dark Apostle. Gotta go back to my Black Legion tab, chat, which I already closed. Great, I'm nailing it because we're diving deep into some jank over here. Veteran Raider on the Dark Apostle. We have a Master of Possession. All right, what is a Veteran Raider? You can fall back and charge with 1 unit within 6. Oh, that doesn't seem that great actually. Okay, well, all right. Fair enough. I guess it's good with Abaddon if they're just like buddy. All right. Well, I guess there's bikers. You want to do it with bikers. Oh, also a Greater Breast Scorpion. Okay. All right, we found the line, chat. Oh no, it's only cores. You can't even point it at the Greater Breast Scorpion. That's sad. Well, there's a Brass Scorpion, by the way. 2 units of 10 Chaos Bikers and Combi Meltas. One of them has Black Rune of Damnation, so -1 to wound on that guy. Both of them Mark of Tzeentch, so they ignore the first failed wound roll or saving throw that they fail, and then they also get +1 AP on all their guns. So they got tons and tons of AP1 combi bolter shots, 4 per biker, so 40, and then +4 for the combi weapon, so 44 AP1 bolter shots plus 2 combi meltas. Yeah, 2 combi meltas. I think you can get another one on the champion, but you have to upcharge for it. And then for once per game, you can also flip them into Red Corsairs, and you can advance and charge with them. So you can run 20 inches and then charge, which is the other benefit of that unit too. In Black Legion, that's why it's so good. A bunch of legionaries to steal objectives from people, and then this big old Brass Scorpion. What's this Brass Scorpion doing? I appreciate that this list kind of snuck that one in there. I was like, all right, it looks like a normal. It's just a normal Chaos Space Marine list, right? And then surprise, he was buried underneath the sand the whole time. So he ignores modifiers and rolls 3d6 charges. Okay, that's a solid. So far, so good. He has either 18 Strength 8 AP2 2 damage sweep attacks, or 6 Strength 12 AP4 6 damage melee attacks. He can fall back and charge innately because he's a knight, I guess. He's tough to kill with psychic powers. Yeah, and that's about it. All right, he's just a big dude. 430 points for this guy. It's a little easy to kill, I think, for 430. Like we're talking, that's knight territory. He has a D6 shot, strength 8 AP2 flamer, and a demolisher cannon, and a 15 shot AP2 1 damage weapon. So good shooting. It's solid shooting. But he's basically just a knight with a buff against mortals. But he doesn't have any of the defensive buffs that knights get. So he's like a 5-up damage ignore and heals a wound every turn. And I guess you can spend TCP for -1 damage on him, right? Because he is a demon engine. Go away. Oh god, this is terrible. Yeah, for blasphemous engines, 2 CP because he's Titanic. That's solid, I guess. 28 wounds with a 5-up invulnerable save and -1 damage is relatively tough to kill. All right, I'll buy it, especially because it has a 4+ against mortals as a psychic power. So if you're like leading with this thing, he just soaks damage for the bikers and stuff against Thousand Suns and Tyranids and all these psychic armies. Seems good. Cool list. Got an orc list from Torin Holmes. It's a Goffs. It's normal Goff stuff. It's just Goff's list. Okay. Skip all these guys. Sean Rice with Grey Knights from Lords of War over here. This list has purifiers in it. We're going a little bit off the deep end. So Prescient Brethren list with a librarian. A Psychic Epitome Librarian, dealing extra mortal wounds with his psychic powers. A Brotherhood Tech Marine. He has Unyielding Anvil, so he's going to be babysitting the Dread Knights, and then he's granting the Dread Knights objective secured with the Warlord trait. No Divination on that guy, though. Just don't need it. Who needs Divination? Garbage warlord trait. Get it out of here. We then have, let's see, Grandmaster Nemesis Dread Knight, Servant of the Throne. No Sigil of Exigence? What is this? Hold up, chat. What? This list is highly non-standard. So he has the 3+ invulnerable save once per game, but he does not have the teleport in response to shooting. Huh. And we don't have any CP regen. I guess we're trying to save as many CP as we can to pump up the Dread Knights. We have Kaldor Drago, a big Purifier squad, 3 units of 10 Interceptors, and 3 Nemesis Dread Knights with swords on them. Okay. It's a little different. It's mostly the same as normal Grey Knights, but we've moved around some of our buffs a little bit. We see an Azure Yanni list over here at Team Battle Brothers Major. Ulthway. We're back to Ulthway with an Avatar of Cain. All right, this is a spicy list. So 2 individual Warlock Skyrunners, the Avatar Behemoth, a Skyrunner, a Farseer Skyrunner, excuse me, with the Ghost Helm. So he's gets Psychic Test of 9 or more, unmodified Psychic Test, which is important because Ulthway get +1. Are undeniable. He's really, really good for actions, so he can run in the middle and do interrogation or do war patrol, and then you quicken with the Skyrunner in the back. You yeet him out of there. Eldrad himself. 2 units of 5 Rangers, 2 units of 5 Dire Avengers, 2 units of 5 Howling Banshees, all normal stuff. 2 units of 3 Shroud Runners, also normal. And 3 Falcons. Okay. Hot damn. So Ulthway does get that floating wound reroll, so it does appreciate having these this MSU build. So that's why we're running a bunch of Falcons, and then we can put the Dire Avengers and 1 Howling Banshee unit in the Falcons. And then depending on what dice you get, what fate dice you get, which you have a lot of control over with Ulthway, because they can keep an extra one, and you have 2 Farseers to reroll between Eldrad and the other guy. If you get a charge, you can dump the Howling Banshees down. We have a Ghost Walk on the Ghost Helm guy, so he can auto pass the charge roll from the Banshee squad when you deep strike, and then you also have the Dire Avengers piling out of Falcons just to shoot people. Sick. Good list. NorCal Open. Got a little bit of Chaos Demons coming. Oh, this is another big smashy boy list, chat. Oh, I love these. Be'lakor. No Shrouded Step on Be'lakor. Who needs it? Gate of Infinity? Garbage spell. Absolutely terrible. When I place my models on the table after the movement phase, I want them to stay there until the charge phase. Be'lakor, also not the Warlord, so we don't have his Warlord trait. It's okay, we don't need it. He just pulses his rerolls regardless, right? So his Warlord trait's just for the focused rerolls. So he's just going to be following around the Bloodthirsters and giving them reroll ones. The Warlord is actually the Argath King of Blades Bloodthirster with Devastating Blow. Oh my god. And Indomitable Onslaught. So he's +1 damage. And then Devastating Blow is, if I remember correctly, no damage ignores? It is, yeah, no damage ignores. So he's +1 damage, no hit modifiers, and you can't ignore his damage. No attack modifiers, full stop. So the only thing he doesn't get around is like transhuman physiology, like auto fail states. But even if you're like, even if you're sitting on like Black Green of Damnation, Delightful Agony, it's like 5-up damage ignore. He's like, no. You die on a 2+. Bloop. That's intense. I like that. Actually. And then also Scarbrand's chilling there too. All right, so that's tough to get through. That's a lot. We have a Transweaver to do some psychic actions with. 5 Blood Crushies, 3 Fiends, 6 Fleshhounds, and 2 units of 10 Seekers of Slaanesh. So we also have no objective secure in this list too. This list goes hard, chat. Oh my god. So we're just going to be using the Seekers to basically seek and destroy enemy objective secured, and then just like smash them in the face with 3 Greater Demons. Love it. Love it. There's no flamers either, chat. There's not a single gun besides like the flamers on the flamethrowers on the corn stuff. We're just all in. Let's go. Smash FaceTime. He has to be the warlord. Yeah, he just doesn't have to be the warlord. He has to be the warlord if you take him. Back in the day you take him into Supreme Command, and he had to be the warlord. If you're in Disciples, then he has to be the warlord. And I think those are the only restrictions. He can just be in a normal demon army, and he's not required to be the warlord. Yeah, he doesn't have any abilities that require him to be the warlord. In fact, I believe a greater demon is required to be your warlord if you have one. Be'lakor may get around that, so if you have a greater demon and Be'lakor, I think you can choose. That would be a detachment ability. Yeah, so that's the rule. So if you have a greater demon, the greater demon must be your warlord. If you have Be'lakor, the greater demon doesn't have to be your warlord, but also Be'lakor also doesn't have to be your warlord. So you just give it to a herald or something. Be'lakor doesn't have any warlord rules. I think there's like a little bit of a misconception, I think, because when the Codex released, he didn't have to be your warlord, but he always was your warlord because you took him in a Supreme Command to unlock your Warp Storm abilities. Now, not only do you not get Supreme Commands, but also he doesn't do that anymore. So you're just never, outside of Disciples of Be'lakor, unless you really want the full reroll warlord trait, you're just never going to make him your warlord, basically. Anyway, moving on. Forest Phantom, who every time I look at their name, oops, I closed the tab. I feel like they're like a comic book character. It's the Forest Phantom coming to, oh, is it Phantom? Maybe it's Phantom. They're coming to save us. They're running Space Wolves, a Chapter Master with Rights of War and the Armor of Russ. Love it. Also Hunter, so he advances and charges. A Primaris Chaplain with Vox Spiritum and Wise Orator. Good stuff. 2 Infiltrator Squads. A Judiciar with Armor Indomitus, so he actually gets an invulnerable save. 3 units of Wolf Squads. So the cool thing with Wolf Guard compared to Vanguard Veterans is that they have like totally unlocked Wargear selections, whereas Vanguard Veterans are basically required to only take melee weapons. So Wolfguard can double dip on the reduced cost Wargear that Space Marines get now, where they take combi weapons in addition to free melee weapons. Or I think they're paying for their melee weapons in this case, but the point still stands. They can take a free combi weapon in addition to a melee weapon. So in this case, 1 unit has all power fists and combi meltas. 1 unit has all lightning, or 2 units of all lightning claws and combi meltas. And this is, if we sort of take a step back from like the Wolfen focused like sort of vehicle lists that we've been seeing from Space Wolves, this is the other build for Space Wolves that's very popular. It's just this Melta-gun spam. Regular, old, bog standard Melta-guns, and you just take them in a ridiculous volume. So we have 15 Melta-guns on 3 Wolfguard squads. All of them can deep strike. You have a fast Chapter Master, so you can run him up in the middle and then deep strike 15 Wolfguard around him. We then have 2 units of Skyclaws, and Skyclaws are also weird because they have 2 special weapon models in the unit like normal. However, the Skyclaw pack leader, the unit champion, also gets a combi weapon, or a special weapon. And their Wolfguard, if you attach one to the unit, also gets a combi weapon. So a unit of 5 Skyclaws with a pack leader, with a Wolfguard pack leader, gets 4 Melta-guns. So we have another 8 Melta-guns there. So we have 23 Melta-guns so far. And then we have, and all of those can deep strike. They all deep strike. They're all jump pack infantry. And then we have just a bunch of long pangs with grab cannons. We don't need multi-meltas on those guys because because we're we have enough melting guns elsewhere. Now you can also take the Wolfguard Terminator pack leader, and they get the free Cyclone missile launcher on if they're attached to Longfangs. So, and you can something that was pointed out to me previously, you can Armorium Cherub anyone in the unit. It doesn't have to be a Devastator. So you can have the Wolfguard guy double tap his Cyclone missile launcher. So you can fire your 4 grav cannons, and if you need to double tap a D6 damage weapon instead of a grav cannon, you can double tap the Cyclone missile launcher, get 4 Cyclone missile launcher shots once per game. Pretty silly. Pretty silly lists. It's kind of like we're seeing like the ultimate stress, it feels like, of like the janky mechanics that Space Wolves use. All because their army construction is so flexible, a lot of times they get these like really kind of I don't know if I would say like broken combinations, but like unintended combos of Wargear where they just kind of get a little silly. All right. Moving on. Cherokee Open this past weekend. We got some really, really wild. This is about a 250 player major. I remember a year or two ago, and it first started, it was not that big. I remember I didn't really know about it until until more recently. I remember watching it on Wargames Live, but it was kind of surprising. All right. We can go through the list real quick. Now, Walter Langendorf, another friend from back in War Machine days, running Necrons, and this is sick, chat. By the way, this list is amazing. I remember the pictures where the memes were flowing pretty hard when this list got up to top 8. So it has an Overlord. We're in Sarikon. We're not running Silent King though, so we get a wound reroll, floating hit or wound reroll. I remember if I remember correctly, and then also a 5-up against mortal wounds. No objective secure in this army. But the benefit is that now we're in Arks of Omen, your Lords of War in your Arks of Omen detachment get your sub-faction abilities. Because it used to be that they wouldn't because you were in an auxiliary detachment if you took them in an auxiliary. And that precludes you from getting detachment abilities. But now, no longer the case. We're now in regular old detachments. So we have an Overlord with a Veil of Darkness. And there's an interesting interaction with Veil of Darkness and some of the super heavies, and we'll talk about that in a sec. 6 Scorpic Destroyers, 1 Canoptic Plasma Sight, 2 units of 3 Canoptic Scarab Swarms. And then, look at this, Lords of War set. 3 Monoliths and 3 Obelisks, chat. Just six super heavies. Slam them down on the table. Let's go. So the interesting thing is that a lot of the hull measurement models in this army have a unique version of the hull measurement rule, where you measure to the model's base or hull with quote, whichever is closer, end quote. And for a lot of events, and this may be the correct interpretation of the wording, I didn't really consider this previously, but then people have pointed out to me. The Veil of Darkness requires you to select somebody, or to place a unit wholly within 6 inches of you. If you are, when you're setting up that big obelisk, are Veil of Darknessing it, basically base to base with the Overlord, the base of the model is going to be closer than the hull, which means that when you're measuring your whether or not you're wholly within, then you only need to check the base because the base is closer than the rest of the model, so you only need to check for the base. It's a little bit of a circuitous logic, but I understand it, and it allows you to Veil of Darkness the big stuff. But yeah, basically, it's just a bunch of big boxes, the big cubes on the table floating around. You know what I mean? Pretty good stuff. We got some Dark Angels. We're gonna skip Thomas Bird running Leagues of Votann. I think this is a Ymir conglomerate. Yep. It's kind of normal Leagues of Votann stuff. Double Sagittars, triple Hurricane Pioneers, double Chthonian Berserks. Leagues of Votann, I guess there's 2 units of Brokier Thunder Cannon, I guess, which is interesting. We have a 5 and a 4. So we can put 1 in the Hecaton Land Fortress and then just fire the Conversion Beamers. So I guess 1 can sit in the back and fire Conversion Beamers, right? Because they want to be far away. And then you disembark the Graviton Blast Cannons from the other one. The cost for damage output's pretty good, and especially, I think as we talked about a couple weeks ago, they have an almost perfect profile at shooting through Dark Angel Terminators. So if you want to be clearing Deathwing, then Blast, Brokir, Thunderkin are actually pretty strong. Jeremy Stan, no faction representative listed here. Ooh, some more Adeptus Custodes. That's for Hotshot in the chat, by the way. That's for you. Here, this one's for you, buddy. Not for you, Inky. The cat's here to talk about Custodes as well. Hi. You want to come say hi to chat? Come on. No? Not today? You're being shy? All right. Maybe later. All right, what do we got this one? No troops at all, but who needs it? Because you have OBSEC on your regular infantry. We have a Dawn Eagle Shield Captain. There you are. Hi, Inky. Hey, come say hi to chat. What's up? What's up, chat? I'm a cat. Oh, you're hooked. What are you doing? There you go. All right. On a Laris Captain, we have a Praetorian Plate Captain with Impregnable Mind. So he counts extra for holding objectives, and he can heroically intervene anywhere on the table once per game. Bane of Abominations, which is, I believe, +1 to wound against monster vehicles. Plus a Dawn Eagle Jet Bike Shield Captain. Normal build there. Orc Exemplar, Superior Creation, Tip of the Spear. Trojan Blurus. 2 individual Alaris Custodians, a 5er of Wardens, so not the 10, but we still got a couple. And then, whoa, look at this. Look at this fast attack slot. 2 units of 3 Venatari Custodians, all Kinetic Destroyers and Bucklers. 3 units of 3 Virtus Praetors with Salvo Launchers, and that's it. That's what we got. Man, these Kinetic Destroyers are coming out in a big way. Coming out of the woodwork. All the pistol Custodians. That's interesting. Maybe there's something to these Pistol Custodians, chat. Maybe it's just the fact that they are like good all-rounders and you don't necessarily need to charge. Although the other ones have a 2 damage melee or range attack too, right? They're just easier to kill is the problem, I think. Oh, we don't want to talk. We're going to skip Astro Militarum. Brad Chester ran Space Wolves this weekend. Yeah, we're on we just talked about the Combi Melta train, and Brad Chester's deep in there. So here's running Born Heroes Whirlwind of Rage, so exploding 6s and +1 to hit on the charge, not hungry for battle. We have a Captain on Bike, Combi Melta, Hunter, Armor of Rust, Imperium Sword. All right. Kind of the same build, but a little bit extra damage out of that Imperium Sword. So plus reroll charges and +1 strength and AP on the charge. So he moves 20 and then charges with a reroll. So that's pretty good. A Primaris Chaplain on Bike, who's a Master of Sanctity, but is not a Wise Order. Okay. I guess you can 1 CP cast your Canticle of Fate with the Master of Sanctity upgrade, right? That is how that works? I always forget. I don't think I've ever seen a Primaris Chaplain who is the Master of Sanctity, but is not the Wise Order, unless they're running Ancient Breviary. So I don't know if I entirely know which ability is unique to which. Yeah, okay. Commanding Oratory only costs them 1 CP. Nailed it. Okay, good. I knew the thing. 2 units of Infiltrators. And then all the Wolf Guard. Yeah, so 5 Wolf Guard with Combi Meltas and Jump Packs. 5 more Wolf Guard with Combi Meltas and Jump Packs. 5 Wolf Guard Terminators with Combi Meltas and Chain Fists. 5 more Wolf Guard Terminators with Combi Meltas and Chain Fist. We do have 1 little Wolfen squad in the back here to hold down objectives and add some melee. Oh, these ones are Thunderhammers, excuse me. We have 1 with Chain Fist, 1 with Thunderhammers. Mostly just helps you crack armor a little harder. The Chain Fists are much better if you're high armor value, and if you're, I guess if you're like -1 damage or something, there's situations where the Chain Fists are much better. Although they're only like 1.3 damage rather than 2 damage, so their damage isn't quite as good, but they're +2 AP, they're AP4 base, which is kind of huge. And then 2 units of Skyclaws with the quad melty guns apiece. Look at that. So we're at 28 melty guns. Cheeky Suppressor Squad, I think largely has a utility in it, most likely. Because we're filling out our heavy support, so we can't take Eliminators, so we might as well take a unit that moves 12 to do actions and stuff. And then it also has a gun, just in case you want to shoot somebody and get rid of Overwatch, maybe. And then, look at that. Just a bunch of las cannon boys. 3 units of Long Fangs with las cannons. All of them, this time, they all have Cyclone missile launchers with in their pack leader. Oh, excuse me. One has grav cannons. So it's 2 las cannon units, 1 grav cannon unit. That's very straightforward. Brad Chester here with the the not particularly subtle lists. He's going to pick an arm weapon type and he's going to spam it as hard as possible. Meltas on, yeah. Do you want Meltas on your Meltas? I heard you like, yo dog, I heard you like Meltas. I'm going to take Meltas on our Melta guys so we can Melta while we Melta. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It's good stuff. All right. Now we have a lot of events that happened this past week. Should we run through all of these, chat? What are we thinking? Are there any highlights we want to hit? I am going to jump off in a little bit here. I'm not going to go too far. We can talk about some Adeptus Mechanicus. Let's hit the highlights. We have a couple good ones because we got some. We've talked about Space Wolves like a billion times. We've talked about all the Space Marines. We have World Eaters. We have Adeptus Mechanicus. There's some Tyranids. So we'll get the factions we haven't hit yet. Alexander Inglesauce, Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, I believe that this is a Australian event, and I think we've talked about Alexander Inglesauce previously. And if I remember correctly, there was maybe some drama around his results. And this event, he scored a perfect 500. Which is very good, is all I'm going to say. It's extremely strong. In fact, the best score you can possibly have in a 5-round event. So, I don't know. Maybe Adeptus Mechanicus are really, really good. I hope so. So, yeah, let's jump in here. He is running... I don't know what subfaction he's running, chat. Is the Red Axe, is that a subfaction specific ability? Yes, it's Mars. Okay, it's Martian. Whew. All right. Well, all right. We got a little bit of a we got a little bone thrown to us over here. Oh man. All right. That's good. So we have both Canticles and Doctrina Imperatives on all of our Skitarii stuff, thanks to Martians, and then also we get a floating hit reroll on all of our stuff, and then you can stack that with the additional floating reroll from the Canticle. So we have potentially two once per game, which is pretty good. We have a Marshal Dominus. So he's got the Red Axe, which is it's just Teeth of Terror almost exactly. It's +2 strength, AP 5 somehow, and then 3 additional attacks. So what does a Dominus with that thing swing? And you can also because you have a bunch of Canticles that buff your melee attacks once per game. You might as well use them. So he's base 3 attacks, so he goes to 6, and I don't think has. He doesn't have Mechana or Mechadendrites. And then you can give him +1 strength once per game. And you can give him a floating... the floating rerolls only work on ranged attacks for the Canticle. So you can't... I guess it's with the +1 strength. Alright, well that's fair. We have... a bunch of melee stuff. So there's 5 Rangers, tons of melee, 5 Infiltrators, and 20 Rust Stalkers. One with the Temporcopia, one with the Omniscient Mask. So the Omniscient Mask is the Exploding Sixes. The Temporcopia is the Targeted Fight Last within 3. Pew. So if you have the regular stuff up in there, and this might be one of the reasons that the Dominus is equipped with a melee weapon. If you have the normal Tech Priests up there, you also have Electroshock, I think is the name of the stratagem. You have access to a second Fight Last. So you can actually Fight Last a bunch of stuff and kind of like broadly charge the Rust Stalkers in and without having to worry too much. getting hit back. And then you also have Sidonian Dragoons as well. So you actually have a lot of melee presence in this list. And that's backing up an Onager Dune Crawler, 2 Dune Riders, which I imagine are holding the Rust Stalkers, because they can hold Sicarians, right? And they don't count as extra. I know you can hold Taraxi, and they are the same size as regular guys, which is a little bit funny, because those models are huge. Yeah, it's just any infantry. So we're putting the 2 Ruststalker units into the Scorpius Dune Riders, so they can take a kind of aggressive position. The Ruststalkers are really easy to kill. They're low toughness, only 2 wounds, so they get vaporized pretty quickly if they get out in the open. But you're going to protect them with the Dune Riders, and then jump out, fight last a bunch of stuff, and then beat it up to death alongside the Sidonian Dragoons. Behind that, and while your opponent's dealing with the Dune Riders, they also have to deal with 8 Iron Strider Belisari, who are getting defensive effects both from the Shroud Psalm and the Canticles, but also the Doctrina Imperatives to make them tougher to kill. And then you can also buff their las cannons either with they have the Martian floating reroll, and you can give them a floating reroll as well from the Canticle. So they just do good damage. And there's an Honored Dune Crawler back there, I think, because it costs 100 points and has a good gun. You know, as you do. So it's kind of a threat overload style of build. Can you deal with 8 Iron Striders and 6 Dragoons and 2 Scorpius full of melee stuff? Well, maybe not. And then they get their real good secondary, where your opponent chooses, or there's an objective on your opponent's side that you have to take, and if you take it every turn, you get a 15 like really easily. I believe it scores 5 a round. Hidden Archaea Vault. So your opponent selects one objective marker not within their own deployment zone. You score 5 victory points if you hold it at the end of your turn. So you're encouraged to play very aggressively because you have a really, really, really strong, easily scoreable battlefield supremacy secondary. And then you also have Eradication of Flesh. So you have sort of another like grind them down style secondary that's really, really strong. And then if your opponent has a lot of vehicles, you get Accretion of Knowledge too. So your secondary game with Adeptus Mechanicus is pretty good. And especially if you're basic, in a lot of situations, you can be basically guaranteed to have a 15 on that Archaea Vault. And if you can take really, really reliable secondaries, then I don't disbelieve that we can score 500 with this list. It's good stuff. They just fold their wings away? Fair enough. That's why like Archaeopters are so small, you know? Just fold their wings up and they're actually the size of a compact. All right, chats. Let's see. Capital Clash, we got World Eaters. So this is, I haven't looked at, I've looked through the World Eaters Codex, but I haven't dived in too much. So I may misremember some of these specific abilities. I'll get better at it as we go. We are running Disciples of the Red Angel. Oh, or Angron's a Lord of War. I immediately didn't see Angron in there. I was like, excuse me? But he's not an HQ. He's Lord of War. So you have to take Angron, and he has to be your Warlord. That is a bit of a downside of this sub-faction. So there's 2 sub-factions in World Eaters, for those who don't know. There's the regular World Eaters, who I don't believe have a... I don't know if they're called anything particular. Yeah, they're just called World Eaters. So you can either play normal World Eaters, and you play all the regular World Eater stuff, and you just play a normal army, and you get one set of abilities and warlord traits and stratagems and stuff. You can also play Disciples of the Red Angel, which is a combined World Eaters and Chaos Demons. It's like a Chaos Demon themed sub-faction, basically, and you get a separate set of relics, warlord traits, and stratagems. The downside is that you have to take... you can only take the demonic stuff, so you can only take 8 bound, I believe. You can't take the normal infantry. But you can ally with Chaos Demons, and you have to take Angron. And he has to be your Warlord. So while you normally take Lord Invocatus and put your Warlord trait on Lord Invocatus to give a bunch of stuff pre-game moves, the downside of Disciples of the Red Angel is that you cannot do that, which is too bad, because Angron has to take his Warlord trait that gets rid of upsec on people, which is like fine, I guess. It means he's really good at taking objectives, but you know, it is what it is. You do get the benefit of all of your 8 bound having obsec too, though. So we have a unit of 5 2 units of 3, and a unit of 3 Exalted 8-bound, which are just like souped up 8-bound that gets put into smaller units. 2 Chaos Land Raiders to carry them around in. That's kind of sick. Plus Angron. So we're already kind of skewing defensively. And then all that stuff, those Chaos Land Raiders and stuff, are giving up Blood Tithe points when they die, which is fine. And then we're allying in a patrol detachment out of Chaos Demons, 2 units of Fleshhounds, Karanak, and 9 Bloodletters. Now, we can... Angron himself is a Warp Locust. So, we could potentially, even if he dies, as long as we've scored enough Blood Tithe points by the time that happens, then at the end of your command phase, you can rebirth him onto the table, and then Warp Locust in Demons in the subsequent movement phase, if I believe this interaction works correctly, within 6 inches of him and outside 6 inches of enemies. So he can sort of, he can act as like a drop pod for demons, basically. If he doesn't die, it's great, because he'll just run into the middle of the table and do that. But if he does die, I believe that you still have the opportunity to do so in your command phase. Yeah, I think that's how that works. The wording's a little bit funky because the Blood Tithe specifies that you spend Blood Tithe points after you gain Blood Tithe points, and I don't know if the intention there is that you I don't know if the intention is that you do it after you if you gain Blood Tithe points in that phase. Oh, you lose Warp Locust at the start of the turn? Dang, chat. Oh, actually, can you even manifest on a Warp Locust? If you're not in Pure Demons? You can, right? Because it's a allied detachment. God, these rules are confusing. There would be no reason to have Warp Locust on him if you couldn't, right? Oh, you just get the thing where you can come in using their leadership value. Just kidding. Yeah, it's all good. So yeah, you don't get the leadership deep strike, but you just have to come in on Angron. But I guess, yeah, you're right, chat. If you you have to be on the table at the start of the turn, or I guess. Okay, so he can't like drop pod people in. That's too bad. I thought that was the thing, but I guess he's just running up the table and hoping he doesn't die. Oh no! Please don't kill my Angron. I guess you're like, if you kill my Angron, I'm gonna. If you don't kill my Angron, I'm gonna demonically manifest. If you do kill my Angron, I'm gonna get 3 Blood Tithe points, and I'm gonna respawn him later. So it's a kind of a catch-22, but definitely feels worse if he dies. So anyway, that's interesting. A lot of times your opponent, I guess, like won't kill him, especially if you're like using if you're bullying with the Land Raiders hard enough, where he's kind of playing a little bit farther back and then the Land Raiders move up the table and your opponent has to deal with them first. I guess depends on how good their like target selection can be. Land Raiders are also an interesting transport unit because they're so physically large that it's easy to if your opponent's trying to shoot them and then charge the stuff inside and kill it. You can most likely place them in a position where it's actually difficult to get a physical charge on them because the Land Raider is like 7 inches long. So you can be like, 8 or 9 inches away. It's pretty cool. Turn 2 Angron goes in? Yeah, but like, I mean, I think it depends a lot on, because he's 18 wounds, right? It depends a lot on your terrain and stuff. Like, if he can't hide, then you can hold him back on turn 1 and then turn 2 use him as the Warp Locust. But if he can't hide, the pressure's on from turn 1, right? Because he's just going to eat so much damage early. And that depends a lot on whether you go first or not. And I think that is, it's an interesting piece of World Eater's design right now, is that they're very go first dependent. Either it's pregame moves into charging, or they're trying to drop demons in top of round 2. It's like very orky. He's almost a transport for demons, basically. And I guess like that list is very similar too, right? I think most of the War Leaders lists you end up bringing are very similar to that, where either you're Warp Locusting demons, you're putting 8-bound in Land Raiders, or you're putting Berserkers in Rhinos, and you're just like trying to go first and then hope for the best, basically. And I think it's not great design, but it is what it is. You know, there it is. At least if you're outside of the Angron subfaction, you can use pregame moves to like get behind mid-board cover, and that's pretty good. I don't know. We got some Imperial Knights today. A Freeblade Lance. Cool. This is an Armiger Helverin with Hunters of Beasts. Another unit 3 Hunters of Armiger Helverins with Mysterious Guardian, so they can come in round 2 or round 1, as if it were round 2. A Strike and Shield Warglaive unit, so trains Hitman and melee. A Knight Errant. And a single Moirax with Lightning Locks. Nice. I like this. I like the subfaction ability selection here, because it definitely specializes each of the Armiger classes. Like, you have the turn 1 Deep Strike Armiger, which I think are really, really good. Or the turn 1 Reserve, I should say. Because it really forces your opponent to play more aggressively than they would normally into Imperial Knights. Usually Imperial Knights is kind of like, they're fast, but they have a tough time getting around terrain. So you're incentivized to hide in buildings as much as possible. But if doing so pulls your screens into a like constrained position, then you just open yourself up to get nailed by the Mysterious Guardians in the first turn and put like three sets of Helverin autocannons into your back line on turn 1, which sometimes just kills you. So you have to screen aggressively, and then that lets the other stuff shoot you on turn 1, and they can just keep the Mysterious Guardians in reserve. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And in a situation where you're then dealing with like a bunch of trans Hitman Armiger Warglaives that are running up the table and are going to obsec you on turn 2, it kind of sucks. Another Chaos Space Marine here, 5-0, Winter Ruin GT. This is another Black Legion. This time we have the Chaos Terminator Brick as the Black Rune. Oh no, yeah, they have a Black Rune, just kidding. As the Black Rune squad, we have some Possessed, 10 Chaos Bikers, an Obliterator, that's cool, and a Venom Crawler for +1 to cast, and some Legionnaires. Cloak of Conquest is the Obsec relic for the Dark Apostle. So he's going to grant Obsec to the Terminators. And then the Legionaries can use the Galaxy Burn, and they can run up onto an objective and remove Obsec from people. So if your opponent can't deal with the Legionaries on like center objectives, then they literally can't take the objective. And then the Chaos Terminators, you can use, I think it's called Tip of the Spear, is the Chaos Space Marine stratagem to like pseudo heroically intervene. It's not an actual heroic intervention, but it lets you move into melee and then fight first. Squeaky cat over here. She's telling me to get off stream. She's like, stop it. It is called... Oh, I can't find it now. It is called Bringers of Despair, excuse me. So it lets them move, or if they're within 3 inches, they are eligible to fight, and they fight first. So they basically go simultaneous with chargers. And even though they're not in melee with anyone, they just pile in and then fight and then consolidate like normal. So it's basically like they get a 3-inch melee range. In your opponent's fight phase for 2 CP. So they can sit on an objective, you can remove Obsec from people, and like heroically intervene to people who are next to you. And they're Obsec themselves, so you have to like heavily commit to the objective to actually take it. So that unit just sort of toilet bowls the game into like a really a real crap show, which is what I expected to see out of the other Terminator, out of the other Black Legion list, but we didn't. And I think the downside is that combo is so powerful in a 5 objective mission, but as soon as you hit a larger mission, it gets a little tougher because that unit could just be like circumvented and kited and then like sort of torn apart. Without Armor of Contempt, the Black Ruin Terminator squad isn't the hardest thing in the world to kill, because while they're tough to hit and wound, their saves aren't that good, so converted attacks will most likely kill them, which is sad. Because usually you'd be like tilling and cover with a 0+ save, but now you're maybe a 1+ or a 2+ maybe, so you're significantly easier to get through. Tons of Azuriani and the Schönenkloppen Open. Some Adeptus Sororitas from Christian Brewer. This is running a Hunter of Beast Armiger Helverin. Oh, excuse me, two Hunters of Beast Armiger Helverins to sit in the back. 1 Retributor Squad. Celestine and the Gemini Superior. Elfristern and Caganel. Morvenval. All the special characters. Let's go. 2 units of 5 Sacrosaunts. Some Crusaders for actions. 3 units of 5 or 6. 4 or 5 Sister Repentia. 1 Dogmata. And then 20 Zephyrum. 2 of 5 and 1 of 10. That feels so small, chat. I guess it's really MSU. But it does feel like, if you compare Sisters lists to like the commensurate value in Space Marines, it feels like Sisters are dramatically outnumbered. Although their characters are very expensive and for good reason, so I guess that's probably why. We do have the Rhino in there to pregame move, so we can yeet Retributors or Repentia at people on the turn 1 if we want to. And then the new Leap of Faith actually sort of incentivizes them to play even more defensively than they did previously, so they can kind of chill in the back and wait for you to come into them, and then all these little tiny units of Zephyrum and stuff just wreak havoc. I watched 5 Zephyrum kill a Redemptor Dreadnought the other day, I think, and I was like, hot damn, dude. This unit's so good. You're just like, here we go, and everything's exploding, and auto-wounding, and +1 AP and stuff, and you're dead. I was like, okay, cool. Let's go. Run Plague Marines in Black Legion, but have switched to World Eaters lately. Yeah, I think the Plague Marines are also good for that same reason, just to give OPSEC to people. That stratagem is specifically for Terminators, though, so they're highly incentivizing you to play Terminator lists. All right. Let's see. We got some... We got more Space Wolves. More World Eaters. Let's take another look at World Eaters real quick here, as we're sort of wrapping things up. We'll just talk about 1 or 2 more lists, I think. This one looks a little bit different. So this is classic World Eaters, not running the Red Angel. We've got Lord Invocatus. So he's got the Warlord trait. Road of 8 Bloody Steps, I believe is the name of the trait. I hope my cat didn't steal something important. Pinky, what are you playing with over there? Oh, it's a model. Uh-oh. So that is that's the pregame move. So you can pregame move a bunch of stuff. A Master of Executions with the Talisman of Rage. That one I don't know. That's going to give them Gene Rot Might to a unit within 9 inches in the command phase. And then a bunch of Jackals. I do like the little Jackal unit. 75 points, you get 10 models, and if your opponent shoots them to death, you get a Blood Tithe point, so you're not even sad about it. And they punch okay, I guess. 3 units of 5 Corn Berserkers, 3 units of 5 8-bound, so these are probably what you're going to be pregame moving into your opponent. 3 units of 3 Exalted 8-bound. All right, we're all in on 8-bound, I guess. 3 Chaos Spawn. This is another outlet for your Blood Tithe points, too, because they can run up the table and just hold objectives and be annoying, and your opponent shoots them, and you get a Blood Tithe point, so you feel good about it. And then 2 Chaos Rhinos also give up 2 Blood Tithe points, or 1 + 1 at the end of the phase if it's 1 or more of them has been destroyed. So it's like 1.5, I guess, if they're both running up. And then you can fill those with the Corn Berserkers. and then how to sort of disgorge those on your opponent on turn 2. So this is more of what I would expect to see out of most War Leaders. I guess it is interesting that the Disciples of the Red Angel and the regular World Eaters do seem to be pretty 50-50 right now. But the regular World Eaters, it feels like give up Blood Tithe points more often, and that's what you need to fuel your secondaries. So that feels a little bit more consistent. But I'm happy to be proven wrong and see some other lists do well. All right, what else we got to talk about? We got a Tyranids over here. Mateus. Behemoth with Territorial Instincts, man after my own heart. Love it to see it. We've got Tyrant Guard with a Shard Gullet Hive Tyrant to keep them going. A Neurothrope with Synaptic Tendrils, so he gets 2 uses of Warp Siphon. A big Hormigant Brick, so we can do a bunch of stuff with these guys. We can give them, let's see, we're just on Socks and Sacks. So they're Strength 4 on the charge, thanks to High Fleet Behemoth. The sub-faction ability, you can auto-advance them 6 and advance in charge for 1 CP. And then you can cast +1 to wound on them. So you can, I don't think we have a direct guidance. No, we don't, which is a little bit down, a little bit sad. But you can, I mean, they're hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, and they wound most of the game on 4s because they're Strength 4 with +1 to wound. So they hit pretty good, and then there's 15 models that you just get to yeet on an objective every turn because they move 60 inches in charge. So it's like a once per game you get to steal for some of the objective for 1 CP, and that's probably fine. Maleceptor, that's why we have the Synaptic Tendrils, most likely, to give it to that guy. So he can Mortal Wound through the middle. 3 Venom Thropes, a Parasite of Mortrax with Alien Cunning, an Exocrine, and 4 Screamer Killers, and a Tyrannifex with Dermic Symbiosis. Love that. Love to see it. It's an Acid Spray Tyrannifex, so the big flamethrower, and then Screamer Killers with Adrenal Glands, which honestly, I think next to Neurothropes are my pick for the best unit in the Codex now. Just the amount of damage a Screamer Killer does once it's fully souped up is ludicrous, and especially into a universe without Armor of Contempt, so Space Marines save against it on 6s. Screamer Killers just like vaporize anything in that Codex for the most part. Outside of Dark Angel's Terminators, and even then, if they're not -1 damage, if they don't have damage reduction abilities active on them right now, you can pay a CP to full reroll, and you probably convert 7 or 8 saves through, even more if you spend more CP on them, and they most likely clip a unit, or at least most of a unit if you hit them. Oh, like a 5-man combat squad, which is a fine trade for a Screamer Killer. And they're relatively fast. Move 11 to the Adrenal Glands is like fine. So I like this list. Pretty cool. All right. Last but not least, Salty Classic GT. So I think I'm going to record a video about Mark Barker's list here because he 5-0'd the event. But we'll do a quick preview of it. He's running Leviathan. So interestingly, if we look at the stat check right now, Leviathan's actually far and away the best high fleet to play in terms of the stats. It actually has a highly above average win rate. So while a lot of people are maining like Gorgon and Behemoth for all the objectives secured and stuff, Leviathan's trucking on, and it actually has like a 60% win rate, which is kind of surprising. And part of it's, I think, because of this result. So it's double Hive Tyrant. So we have a floating reroll and everything, and we're running the adaptive trait. So the big monsters get Transhuman, and the little stuff gets Stalwart while within 6 inches of Synapse. Unless you are a Zoanthrope, and then you get nothing, and you'll like it. So double Hive Tyrant, both with the Relic Cannon, so a Shard Gullet and a Stranglethorn Cannon, or a Balethorn Cannon. So the 5 damage Venom Cannon shot and the 3 damage Stranglethorn Cannon shot, and they both have a floating reroll. One of them has Alien Cunning to give itself objective secured. The other one has the 5-up damage ignore. And then we have a big brick of 5 Tyrant Guard to sit them behind. And right now, I don't know what it is quite, but Tyrant Guard feel much harder to kill than they have in the past. And I think it's because people aren't maining as much high AP weapons as they were when fighting Armor of Contempt. So outside of like Space Marines who are sitting in Devastator Doctrine all game, a Tyrant Guard in cover, being a 1+ save, is actually kind of difficult to deal with. And you can Catalyst them. That's a 20 wound unit, so the Catalyst goes pretty far. You can give them the 5+ invulnerable save from the Zoanthropes. And then we just got some infantry, so Hormagaunts to steal an objective, Termagants to sit in the back line, Gargoyles to go do banners somewhere, and then a bunch of Carnifexes and 2 Harpies. So we're kind of really like leaning on all the stuff that got nerfed previously. A Carnifex with Enhanced Senses and Heavy Venom Cannon. So we have 4 of those. One of them has Chitin Thorns, which I think is +1 AP in melee, mostly because I think we had 5 points left over somewhere, and we might as well have played that. And then 2 Harpies. One of them has a Synapse, so it's transhuman, and broadcasts the Synapse of the other Harpy. I think the Harpies are much more playable than people give them credit for. After watching specifically the Invitational, I was watching Josie C's game, and she was running Aircraft. She was running 2 Doom Sights in her pre-cut games. And the play pattern was really interesting because you can, and I think it's also works very well with Tyranids, because you can hold on turn 1. You just you set up and you screen a little bit, and you basically just wait for turn 2. When turn 2 comes in, the Harpies deep strike, and then every single model sort of leaves cover, and you shoot something to death, and then you shields up, and everything gets a 4+ invuln from the zoanthropes. So you basically you get a turn of hiding, where you're just shooting people with the venom, with the Hive Tyrants or whatever, and maybe doing some actions. And then round 2, you go all in, and you 4+ invuln save the whole army. And then you basically get another turn of shooting. It's unlikely they do too much damage to you if everything's on a 4+ invuln. And then you get another round of shooting with the heavy venom cannons, and they all have that floating hit reroll. You get 2 sets of reroll 1s from the Hive Tyrants themselves, and it's just a lot of AP3 high damage shooting. So hopefully between those first 2 rounds of shooting, you have enough damage to force your way through. And then late game, you're punching people with Tyrant Guard and Hive Tyrants and hoping for the best. The melee in this list is very subpar. It's not very good. And the Carnifexes are fine, but they're strength 6. It's a lot of mid-strength, mid-volume 3 damage attacks, which is fine, but it's not that exciting. And then the Harpies are there for volume, so you have a ton of 2 damage swings or shots, and the 1 damage stingers from the Harpies. They have those floating hit rerolls as well. They probably don't bomb very often because they won't bomb until turn 3, and they can't drop Spore Mines in this list just naturally, but I think the shooting's very consistent. And if you hit the downside, I think I would see is if you hit somebody who doesn't care about 4 damage shooting, you hit a Chaos Demons or something. And they're all right, well, I'll just hide my Greater Demons, and you'll shoot into Demonic Invulnerability all game. Or you play, I don't know, you get second against Orcs or something, and you kill all their kill rigs, and then they just engage you for the rest of the time, and you're okay. But if you can dodge those matchups and you hit people that those 2 turns of Venom Cannon shooting just tables, then I don't see a reason that this list would be bad. Seems pretty solid. So yeah, I'll do a deeper dive into that list and what it played against in the event meta and stuff like that. But freaking good to see some Tyranids back in the top 5s and stuff over here. And I think we'll probably end out on that note, chat. So we got to talk about some Tyranids. We really covered a wide swath of the meta. So, like I said at the top, if we talk less about Dark Angels and Iron Hands, the top Space Marine sub-factions, there's still some interesting stuff. We got some Black Templars poking up in there. We got some Space Wolves really strong as well. Salamanders to a lesser extent. All those are good, and they're high enough volume that we're going to see them a lot. But I do think that Dark Angels and maybe Iron Hands need a little bit of a tone down. And if we and Astra Militarum need just another pass, send it back to the printer and try it again, because that codex is a fail. But if we can kind of write those off, then the stuff that's winning is pretty varied, and that's pretty cool. I think that right now, if you're not on Chaos Demons, Astra Militarum, one of the top Space Marine sub-factions, it feels less likely that you're going to 5-0 of an event. But if we see those get hit, then it does feel kind of wide open. I think you could see a lot of these X and 1 lists move up to the top. And I think that's really cool. Exclamation point lists, chat. That's where the lists are from. It's discountgamesinc.com/tournaments. Hosts a bunch of lists, all the top 5 and top 8 lists from events and stuff. Pretty good stuff. Yeah, it's cool to see AdMech sort of get back into it. I don't know if I understand the hate for AdMech. Like, not in terms of like people disliking the faction, but the hate for like their effectiveness, right? Like, it feels like they have all the tools. Their infantry is kind of tepid, I guess. They're not like super fast melee infantry. They're kind of like alpha strikey. And their guns, like, I guess, are like straightforward. If you just hide from them, they don't shoot you. But you can play Lucius. But their guns are still strong enough that they're like, if you're up against all the Skitarii and Iron Striders and stuff, and you get caught in line of sight, they will just kill you. It's not like their guns are any weaker than they were 2 years ago. Their melee is very good. It's worse than it was, but also their army's cheaper, so it's kind of whatever. It's just squishy is the problem, and their secondaries are great. So I think that like that feels like an army that, you know, once we get some people really diving into, I think could unlock it in a big way. Been seeing a lot of Grey Knights recently. Yeah, Grey Knight's pretty solid. They just have good. They're just like a good all-rounder for the most part. I think the downside of Grey Knights right now is that it is basically only like the 3 to 4 Dread Knight list, and that's kind of all you can play. But it is what it is. Matt Laura played a non-Dread Knight list at LVO, but that was Nephilim, so I think a lot has changed. Getting a nerf to Purifying Ritual is like huge for that faction, because you lost a really consistent secondary. So you're trying to focus on stuff that scores Teleport Assault really efficiently, and that's just Dread Knights. Like, they're just the best thing at it, and that's unfortunate. It's too bad. All right, chat. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks, everyone, for coming and hanging out. It's been a bit of a long episode, but we had a little bit of a break talking about 10th edition stuff last week. I haven't been to a tournament in like a month and a half, which is probably the longest streak I haven't been to a competitive event in ages, largely because of the Invitational. But now that the Invitational is done, I'm going to try to hit a tournament this weekend, and I might do a little bit of a tournament report next week, as long as it's not a shit show. But we'll see. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. I'm going to go ahead and eat some food and feed my cat because she's upset at me, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Please come hang out with me on Twitch, by the way, twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise. I'm streaming a game tomorrow against Orks. I'm against Orks tomorrow for Black Crusade Open, and then Thursday is going to be, we have a pod finals in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I'm streaming a game against Adeptus Mechanicus, speaking of Adeptus Mechanicus. And then I should have more games coming Friday and over the weekend, too. So we're going to be playing a lot of 40k over there. So come hang out with me. And otherwise, I'll see you later. Remember to keep it classy, folks. And as always, have happy wargaming.